Okay, let's call the town council meeting of February 10th, 2026 to order. Jen, will you take roll?
Councilmember Alberish, Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Here. Councilmember Abarish, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, sir. Moving on to communications. This is public comment, so persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the published agenda are invited to do so. Please note, however, that the council is not able to undertake any extended discussions or act on non-agendized items. Such issues can be referred to staff for a future agenda placement. This period is limited to 5 persons, 3 minutes each. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on any issue not on the published agenda? Seeing none and seeing none in the Zoom room, we will move on. We are fortunate tonight to have a presentation from the Youth Civics Program, and I believe, Moira, am I handing this off to you? Okay.
All right. Hi, council members. We have now concluded our first Woodside Youth Civics program. And we wanted to share a little bit about the program with you, but it was very successful. It was so much fun. Just a reminder, it was grades 3rd through 6th. It was 5 days over 5 weeks, and we covered basic town governance. We covered safety and emergency preparedness. We covered businesses and local nonprofits, and kind of how everything works together. And we did a mock town council meeting. And the topic was whether it was Oak Meadow Ice Cream could open up their business in the meadow over here. And it was, the planning commission said no, and so it was appealed to town council, and that was what these kids, some of them played members of town council, some of them were Oak Meadow Ice Cream, some of them were environmental groups that were opposed to cutting down the oak trees. So it was a really successful program. And some of our students have prepared things to share about the program.
Hi, Woodside. I'm Grant Simcover, and I go to Woodside School, and I am in 3rd grade. I love doing the youth civics program. It felt good to get a say in the debate and get to learn all about Woodside. A special thank you to Maura for putting on this program and making it so fun. I learned so much.
Hi, my name is Callie Berman, and I go to Woodside School at 3rd grade. I loved the Woodside Civics because it was so fun. My favorite part was pretending to be in a real town council meeting and learning about how the decisions are discussed and made.
My name is Alex, and I'm in 3rd grade. And one thing I enjoyed about the civics program was you got the opportunity to like be on the town council, and you got to make decisions like a real town council member.
I am Andre Jing. I'm in 5th grade. I really thank you for giving us a chance to learn how our town government works.
Thank you guys so much.
Well, and thank you all. Very special thank you to our young residents for your interest in participating in this program and learning a little bit about how local government serves the community. I'll be interested to learn more about your favorite parts of which role you thought was the favorite. And a special thank you to the volunteer committee for this inaugural effort. This is a lot of work. Thank you all, and very creative and wonderful to see. I also want to acknowledge Councilmember Wall and former Mayor Shaw and Town Manager Ledbetter for their participation. Really a wonderful thing, and really a wonderful step forward. So thank you all for your leadership and involvement. And you don't mind, I'd love to come shake your hand. So.
And we have certificates for completing the program for you guys.
Hey guys, you want to go there?
He's telling us to go over here.
Gotta go there.
Okay, we get the committee. Sure. Oh,
Okay, 3, 2, 1, smile, everyone. Take lots of pictures. Perfect. Thank you very much. Good to see you. You gotta shake. Oh, you left him hanging. You left him hanging. Don't leave him hanging.
this is Thalia Lubin. I just want to add one thing, that Chris Shaw did a great job as mayor. And in fact, we were talking, he and I were talking at the end of the meeting, and he said, maybe we should think about doing something like this for adults. Because he said the same thing. I get people at the store saying, oh, you know about the town, tell me this. And he says, maybe we should do an adult class. And actually, Melissa told me that Half Moon Bay actually has a similar program. So we're going to put our thinking caps on, and maybe next year we'll do 2 programs.
Interesting. Well, thank you, Thalia. Okay. Well, moving right along, we've got appointments for Planning Commission for Districts 1 and 3. And sure. I think that's, if everyone's all right with that, we'll just jump over and do town appointments first while we wait for Commissioner Gar to arrive.
Sure.
So which of you lovely sub-appointment committee folks are going to?
Happy to let Paul have the floor.
Okay.
Okay. So we had an extensive agenda here. Every year we go through and ask the committees for reports. We got, I think, 8 of the 9, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was 7 of the 9. I think I got that. And for the most part, they are reappointment requests from, I'm not going to go through them because it's in the packet, but they're reappointment requests for Livestock and Equine, Recreation Committee, Trails Committee, et cetera, all the way through. There were, however, 2 new applicants, and we should probably take those in. By the way, the committee recommends that the reappointment requests be honored. I would point out that there were some attendance issues. There always are. Most of them were excusable or excused. There were some hardship cases for the few that actually were issues, but in every single case, the chair of the committees had recommended we're supporting the reappointments on these. And they also gave a little bit of summary of what was going on in their committees, and I wanted to thank them for that. So the 2 that we have are, and we should probably take them in order. The first one is for the Trails Committee. There are 15 members. There are 4 that are being reappointed. As I mentioned, those are not controversial. But there's a new member, Veronica Pichafuco. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Pichafuco? I don't know if I'm doing that correctly. And she did include and comes with the recommendation of the committee chair. And based on that, the recommendation is to approve her appointment to the Trails Committee. She would be the 5th person, and there's 2 vacancies after that. Do we need to do anything special, or you want me to do these as a single motion for everything?
You just take them at one. That'd be great.
The second appointment, she happens to be here tonight, Leanne Gilbert. For the Circulation Committee, there are 9 members in total. There are 4 that are expiring. There's been a suggestion of a reappoint or a recommendation that we reappoint the 4 that are up. One of them is here tonight, Dan Drucker. I see him in the back of the room. And there's 1 new applicant, and that, as I mentioned, is Leanne Gilbert. And I'm not so sure that there's any controversies about any of this, but I'll open it up to the floor if there's any issues or discussions, or I don't want to cut off Leanne if she wants to say anything, but she
Well,
doesn't have to.
any questions from council? Seeing none, any members of the public or any of the applicants?
On either applicant, yes.
Then I think we are ready for a motion, subcommittee.
I would like to make a motion that we appoint Leanne Gilbert to the Circulation Committee and that we appoint Veronica Ichiafuco to the Trails Committee.
Second.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, thank you. And
Congratulations, Leanne.
thank you. Yes, congratulations and welcome aboard.
And to Veronica.
I see Matt Gar in the Zoom room, so I think we're going to move into the interview and appointment of planning commissioners. And before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that this moment is usually one of these moments that I actually dread every year, and I think I'm not alone, particularly when we have three great candidates for two spots. But we received some notice yesterday from Commissioner Apfel, who's in the room right now, that he had withdrawn his application, stating that he has tremendous respect for Commissioner Gar and Citizen Evans, and that with that sincere interest, he saw no reason to run against those proposed candidates. So I just want to take a moment to thank Commissioner Apfel for his service to the community. He was very gracious several years ago, willing to step in an out-of-district appointment, and we're very appreciative of that. And it was been an absolute honor to have you in that spot, and we certainly hope that in district or out of district in the future that we get that opportunity again. So thank you again. We will make sure to get a proclamation and an honor coin in your pocket in the next couple of weeks. And once again, thank you for your service to the community on planning and trails over the last 8 years. Really appreciate it. We're going to take the applicants now for Planning Commission in the order that they are listed on the agenda. So each applicant has the opportunity to speak. There'll be questions from council. We'll open it up to any questions or comments from public, and then we will deliberate and vote with the two candidates that we have for these two spots. So, Mr. Evans, you are up first. Welcome.
Okay. Just want to thank the previous planning commissions for doing a lot of the hard yards over the last couple of years. The housing element and subsequent fallout from that was not easy. And so watching that gave me a lot more respect for the planning commission than I had before. Not that I didn't have it, it's just that was hard and late nights for those guys. For this round, I really just feel like every citizen should do something for their town over time. And this is actually a really good time for me. My 18-year-old's going off to college, so I have less kids at home. Work's kind of slow right now, so I'm like, hey, I can actually do something. So this was actually a really good time, and Matt and company got through the hard stuff last year. So I just look forward to doing what I can to help the town and really just like help folks who have to go to the planning commission just find a way to make it work. I think that's really the town's codes and guidance is really not hard to follow. But there's always, as we've sort of found out, there's nothing in this town that's straight or flat or easy to get around. So there's always going to be deviations. There's always sort of a way to find neutral ground. And I know that the building department and planning department have usually bring the planning commission very thoughtful recommendations and views on that. So let's look forward to my part.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Questions for Mr. Evans? Great.
All right,
Councilmember Wall.
Mr. Evans, you're 100% right. There was a lot of work done in 2024.
It was
On the-
finalized in 24, but it started long before that.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of work done so far on the housing element. However, there is still a lot of hard work ahead of us to implement the programs and other elements of our housing element. So just curious to hear your perspective on the housing element and how you would approach the implementing portion of the hard work ahead of us.
Yeah. So, looking at the overall goal of the element of adding, over 300 units to Woodside, I just see it as really hard. no matter what happens, or what the state says or must be done, it boils down to every individual owner of a lot has to decide what they want to do with their lot. And if we don't have hundreds of people who want to expand their lots, I'm not sure how it's going to change. So a lot of I know in the process of the housing element, there was a lot of sort of fear that things would really change radically. I really struggle to see how we're going to achieve the 300, first of all. And then what's going to happen if the state says, oh, you have to do it. And we're like, well, you can't make private citizens do what they don't want to do. So I think what the challenge I see is actually at the town council level, dealing with if the state decides to get draconian about, thou shalt meet our goals. Because I do think that the town, through these different processes, have found a way to, allow this to expand if we would, but I just don't see anybody doing it. So I really see the challenge really on town council shoulders and less on sort of planning commissions.
Any other questions? You kind of hit on this out of the gates with your timing and why this is a good time for you to be able to give back. We had, as we do every time we do appointments, we had the attendance records sent to everybody on council. And it was elucidating in a couple ways. One is that the Planning Commission is probably meeting 12 to 14 times a year now. So maybe every other meeting or so is almost canceled at this point.
Cancellations.
Yeah, so there's a question there about maybe ultimately as subjective design review changes, what can be absorbed from ASRB, and we'll see how that unfolds. That's not the question. But people in general, because they live busy lives with work and family and town, missing 3 or 4 meetings a year out of those 12 to 14, and we only have 5 people on the council commission. So your ability, you think, to meet the obligation, if you will, to be at these meetings, engaged and informed and in attendance. I'm just getting to know you a little bit, so I don't know, but how do you sort of think about how you're going to approach this in terms of being engaged?
Really, it's about priorities, just sort of putting on the calendar and sort of mapping out sort of work constraints around it. So you're in person as much as possible. And if you're not in person, then you can always be on Zoom, which is, great since the pandemic. And secondly, I just sort of more about me is I tend to sleep 4 or 5 hours a night, and that's my normal.
Oh.
And so there's a lot of time to do things like, review decks and review people's proposals that, when the rest of the world is sleeping, I do that. And so I really see if there's a meeting coming up, I kind of have 2 hours in the morning to myself to sort of do what I need to do.
Mhm.
And so that's what I would envision covering the research part, because it is important for the planning commission to actually read everything and actually interact with the building and planning departments of town to make sure you have the right questions to ask. So you're not coming in with one thought and then you're completely missing the actual point of the application. So I think it's possible.
Thank you. Insomnia
And one less
advantage.
kid is so much time.
It's what?
So much time. My 18-year-old just is he takes a lot of effort.
Yeah,
So
I get it. I'm a new empty nester myself, so it's unbelievable what you can get done. We don't have children around. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Evans? Okay, thank you. Well, Mr. Gar seeking reappointment, sir. Commissioner Gar.
Hello.
Hi.
People.
So why do you want to be reappointed, Mr. Gar?
Why do I want to be reappointed? I've had a lot of fun the last 4 years, plus or minus. No, on a serious note, it's been, I think, a pleasure to serve the town on planning commission. A number of different issues. I think number one, housing element has been, it's been interesting, right? Just balancing the needs of the town to the state has been quite the experience, so to speak. But I think, Woodside is sort of going through what I think is an evolution in terms of how we respond. It's gone from, when I joined, it was in the wake of some of the national news stories that we had made. And I think we've found a little bit more pragmatic spot in terms of where we sit. So, in the time on the council, we've looked at, commission, I've looked at how we approach more housing through things like ADUs. I've been through, all of the passionate discussions on multifamily housing, where does that live, et cetera. No pun intended. And I think we're not done with that work, right? So I'm still looking at things, and as I've said in some of the meetings, I think, you know, what is it, 6 years from now, we're still in a really bad spot. And where, you know, if we look at the restrictions on building in town center, for example, we just don't have really a solution. We've sort of maxed out what we can do with the suboptimal sites that nobody was happy about. And so I'm, you know, quite passionate about both serving on the TCAP as well as on planning commission to kind of work our ways through that. So those are the things that I find kind of most interesting, and want to, you know, continue to represent the town on those aspects. And there's also, you know, the more kind of day-to-day projects as well. And for those, I feel like in general, it's important to have a, you know, relatively objective approach to those and be predictable. And that's what I try to do on the council, or excuse me, on the commission, and would like to continue to do that.
Wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Welcome.
Questions for Commissioner Gar?
In the spirit of fairness, I'll ask you the same question that I asked Mr. Evans.
Mhm.
So as you are well aware, there's been a ton of work done in the last few years to get to the point of having a housing element. What's your perspective on the next few years, where the attention is now turned to housing element compliance and implementation?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's actually two main parts to that. There's what we do with the one that we have now, you know, had gone through, and also how we prep for the next cycle. So I think on I'll take the next cycle first, which is, I mean, I think they're making sure that we get something out of the TCAP. You know, there's gonna, I mean, my personal view on this is there's gonna need to be some decisions made, or potentially voter initiatives to just kind of change the sort of overly constrained problem set for how we, you know, set ourselves up for success next time around. I think we heard from a lot of folks in the town how just, I mean, no one likes the outcome. Or, I don't want to say no one, but a lot of people don't like the outcome. So I want to make sure that we take those steps, and frankly don't have what happened the last time we did a town center plan and it didn't really yield anything. So I think we need to kind of do better. So that's kind of one thing. On the other bit, I mean, we obviously need to make progress on the sites where the zoning has been passed. We all know that each of those sites also isn't necessarily like they all have their challenges. So I think, I don't know exactly how we do that, but, you know, figuring out, do we proceed with them? Is that the right set of things? Do we look at other options and try to make substitutions? I mean, I've recently moved to Raymundo, and, you know, continued to look at the site there, and you just look at like the economics of a $2.5 million sewer connection and a seismic fault that runs through the middle of the site. And it's like, is this going to work? So, you know, we have these things, but I think we need to look at each of them on its merits and figure out how we go forward. And if it doesn't pencil out, we need to be willing to have the conversations to figure out what else to do.
So on behalf of District 2, welcome to District 2, spanning from Wunderlich to Hutter to Edgewood Park's most beautiful terrain in the country. You mentioned the suboptimal sites, and of course, Raymundo is one of them. You have moved within 500 feet of the property line of the density site there. So you're going to presumably have to recuse in that discussion. I'll look to Kai if that's correct. Yeah. So it's a big issue for that neighborhood. On one hand, they're already represented by Commissioner Weaver, but your neighbors are going to be, I guess, looking to you too and wondering, you know, what kind of voice you're going to be able to provide. And it struck me as interesting. What are you okay with that? If you serve on planning, you'll have to recuse on one of the major sites in the housing element in the coming forward period. It's one of many issues, but it's going to be a polarizing issue for the neighborhood you moved into.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, am I okay with it? I kind of have to be because I don't think there's any like that's the, you know, that's the nature of the situation. I mean, I'd certainly, you know, forget with recusing, I believe you can still participate as a private citizen. So, you know, I would be looking to do that, you know, of course, to the extent that it's ethical and feasible. You know, it's interesting also, I remember, you know, folks during the original meetings talking about, you know, if you lived here, it'd be different. And I've been reflecting on that a lot as well. And it's interesting. I mean, my personal point of view on it is like, we still have an obligation to the state if it's, you know, adjacent to where I live, you know, so be it as well. But I think, you know, what I would try to bring to that is just, I mean, finding the right solution, whether that's, you know, is it that site? Is it other sites? Or if it is that site, that we find kind of the best, you know, design, and it still is as close to the general plan as possible.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions for Commissioner Gar? All right, seeing none, we will just open public comment. We received a lot of wonderful notes endorsing our candidates, but are there any members of the public here or in the Zoom room that would like to make any additional comments in the appointment process? Okay, well, seeing none, do we have a motion on the council?
I'd like to move to approve the appointments of Mr. Evans and Mr. Gar to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, thank you. Commissioners Gar and Evan, welcome. Congratulations. You've got a big job ahead of you. So we look forward to working with you, and thanks for your willingness to serve the community of Woodside. So welcome aboard. Okay. Moving right along, town manager report, Mr. Ledbetter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor and the Woodside Town Council. So town staff has received word from Representative Liccardo's office that the town will be receiving $250,000 for a bridge project that was submitted for a few months before my start date. I think there's a little bit of confusion, and so I'll touch base with Public Works about which bridge exactly is to be funded. The town has been receiving a lot of communication about poor driving decisions and close calls in front of the Woodside Elementary School during drop-off, and so the sheriff's office has been making their presence felt at this location based off of the engagement and videos that were being provided by the school. We are working with Good City to finalize a date, and it looks like March or April based off of some other needs we have for the council for an update by Good City on the TCAP coming to town council. Once again, that'll be either in March or April. On the evening of February 3rd, I did attend the Woodside Hills HOA meeting with the fire marshal from the Fire Protection District. I give an update just on town operations as pertaining to that district and kind of the sphere of influence around that district. And then the focal point was on the instigation of the contract that you guys had signed in the past to do vegetation removal along the right-of-way is going to start on Woodside Road in the coming month. The town continues to receive inquiries and interest into a more aggressive approach to code enforcement with a couple abandoned properties in Woodside as well. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Ledbetter? Hearing none, any public comment on any of those items? Seeing none, we will close the report. Thank you. Next up, consent calendar. Moving right along this evening. All items on the consent are considered routine, will be approved with one roll call motion unless an item is pulled and transferred to the regular agenda or just pulled for further discussion by council. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any member of council would like to pull for further discussion? 2 and 3. Wow. Okay. Can we get a motion on item 1? To pass item 1.
We'll move to pass item 1.
Register of demand.
So I will move to pass a register of demands against the town Woodside from January 16 through January 31, 2026.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Yes.
Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes, moving in order. Item number 2, Councilmember Wall.
Okay, I think this one should be pretty quick. So item 2 is approval of a records and information management policy and updated records retention schedule. I thought the staff report gave an excellent summary of the background, but I was just hoping the town manager could kind of give an exec summary of the policy and the new policy and the retention schedule.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to give you a summary. Ultimately, it was an item that started or predates me, and so a consultant was hired to come in and work with not just myself, but the attorney's office, and then every department head through the clerk's office ultimately participated over the last, I'd say, predating me. So over the last year, I believe, on this policy. We do have the gentleman that helped curate this policy, I believe, available to answer any questions, but ultimately, I don't think that I would be capable of summarizing the policy. We will be rolling the policy out with two major events, I guess you can say. We have a records issue here, ultimately. We need to really clean out the office and make a determination as to what is redundant and what needs to meet within the policy on being stored. And so you guys at the last meeting had approved staff augmentation. And so we're meeting with CSG tomorrow to go over this policy and kind of explain our needs to the possibility of that part-time employee. And then staff is currently working on basically a spring clean where we will incorporate rolling out this policy with the staff in August. But I don't know if there's any specific questions I can answer for you, but ultimately, I don't think that the town didn't have a policy in the past, is my understanding. So this is the first policy. And then we just had a spreadsheet where we had really records retention, probably longer than required by the state of California based off of different desires with internally with staff. And so this policy really incorporates everybody's needs from each individual department and then validates that based off of the consultant that we're in the town attorney's office that we're actually complying by state law.
Would you like a motion?
Yes.
right.
So I wasn't planning on bringing this up. Thanks for public records issues. So it comes up a lot that we get, well, not a lot, there's lots of public records requests that come up. Almost everything we do now is digital, electronic. It's hard to think of anything that's not available that way. And for us, it's mostly emails, and we're very sensitive about that. I just have a question. If I delete an email from my thing, is that still retained by the town?
Email is not a part of this policy, actually. So
Oh.
ultimately, that's still a question. I think that we probably need direction on primarily with the town council and that very specific issue. So email, to my understanding, is not a part of this policy.
We should get an answer to that question, though. I mean, I don't. It's
Oh, yes.
what we do, so.
Yeah, I believe that there is a legality to the deletion of email, and I would refer to the town attorney on what that is with the state.
All right, thank you.
You want to take a shot?
I can, sure.
Sure.
Operationally, I can't speak to how the town system works, but emails are public record and should be retained for 2 years.
Got that. But my question is, when I delete something, and I don't, but when I delete something, is it still retained by the town?
That's a,
You don't know.
I don't know the answer.
No, that's the question I've got is.
We'll work with.
It's about not deleting things.
I'll follow up with IT on what that looks like, and I'll get back to you on a staff memo.
Just anecdotally, having had conversations about that issue in the past, not with Jason, but with the previous town manager, I believe there is some level of retention, even if an email is deleted, it goes into a deleted folder for a period of time.
I would have to think that too, but I just wanted to confirm it. Thank you.
Maybe just a follow-up question. So that strikes me as a little strange that email wouldn't be a part of our records retention policy. And just glancing at the section 5 that talks about the types of records, it says, according to California state law, a record includes any writing containing information relating to the conduct of the public's business.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the clerk wanted to chime in on this. I know based off our engagement on this item, that ultimately there's kind of a conflict with what the consensus within the organization. I think we have some members that really want to retain email really in perpetuity to be able to pull from it. And so I don't think we got clear definition on email is kind of my understanding within the policy. Is that accurate, Jim?
Bruce is here if he wants to talk about it.
Oh, okay. Well, we can go directly to the consultant on this.
Okay, Mr. Meyer, we're gonna recognize you here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Yes.
You know, when you mentioned that email, when you hit delete, it is not truly gone yet, especially if the city is backing up the Exchange server. Technically, the email is not gone when you hit delete. Reality says, as far as we're concerned, it's gone. But the flip side of that is we don't necessarily have approval to delete that email. As the city attorney said, it should be kept for 2 years. Now, that means something that really has more of an official side to it. If you determine that an email has value and create a record out of it, I can see that as being kept for 2 years. But in all reality, Mama's recipe for, chocolate chip cookies from 1988, we don't really care about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're maybe just going back to the first question, is email subject to this policy?
I don't believe we have it as a subject of the policy yet because we didn't make a determination on it. It's a very hotbed subject. You talk to most people and 2 years can be a fine term. You talk to engineers and they'll scream at you because projects tend to go on a lot longer than just 2 years. So the reference back to that information is essential. Now that brings into play determining again when an email can be considered a record and creating a record out of it, whether that's creating a PDF, printing it to PDF, printing it to paper, dragging and dropping it into Laserfiche as a record. You're creating that record out of it and storing in a repository or outside of the email system, which has never been a document management software setup. Laserfiche is the core setup for the city. So anything that's dragged and dropped into that would be created a record. The remaining emails can, for the most part, be transitory. That's what I see as a majority of emails maintained by an individual are transitory in nature. They have some value. There may not be a final decision made on that email. And when it is, it's up to the individual. So it is very subjective to create the record out of that email.
Okay, sounds like we have some work ahead of us.
Yes.
Are we okay with the motion at this point?
I am personally still confused, and maybe
Okay.
it's just me. I really just want to understand, is email considered a record under this policy? Or are we not clear on that?
I'd like to go ahead and chime in. I mean, I think it's considered a record on some level, but we don't have a current retention policy, or we don't have a retention lined up. Now, the policy references email, but we don't have a schedule on retention for email, is my understanding.
Okay, so we probably will be coming back to the council to amend this policy once we have a point of view on email retention.
Yes.
Amen. That too. That's again, it's a hotbed subject. People will be angry about it, but it's also forcing the individual to determine whether an email is a record or not and creating a record out of it. The system in itself, based upon, for instance, the city of San Jose and their case against texts and other social media aspects. Technically, email can be considered a record, but I think, again, it's so subjective because it is a transitory, is an ad considered a record when it comes to email? Not necessarily. It's really more business related materials, but we all get ads of some sort or notifications from whomever.
I was just looking through the policy, and it looks like under 5.5 there is a section for email communication. So I would think that would apply to Everyone in town?
Thank you for pointing that out. Sounds like email is in scope for this policy.
It is in scope, but I don't think we have applied a retention to it. It's more a notification, and it is something we need to discuss and develop a little bit more of a policy to it, whether that's a separate policy from this one or integrated into it. But we need to make a decision on that.
Can I just say one thing?
Of course.
The town absolutely has a retention schedule that includes email. We've had that for as long as I've been with the town. I think this policy is geared towards building an operational system to help implement that schedule, which is what the town has not had. And so it's been kind of just left to staff to figure out how to retain the records in this according to the schedule without any sort of operational guidance. So however long ago it was, this process started, try and build this operational document, and that's what we have here. But I want to be clear that the town does have a retention schedule that includes email, along with all other public documents.
Thank you.
Well, we need a motion.
You want me to make a motion?
Somebody could make
I
a
can do it.
motion.
I'll move to approve move to approve a records and information management policy and updated records retention schedule.
Second.
You.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold,
Abstain.
Councilmember Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski.
Okay, slowly working our way through, but important stuff. Item 3,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
This is a project that to me is an example of fiscal insanity going wild. We started this, how many years ago? 4 or 5 years ago, is that right? With $800,000 gift from the federal government to build bike paths. Caltrans actually built bike paths at no cost to us. And now we're not only saying the $800,000 is not enough, we need another $200,000 to build bike paths on the same street. Somehow this is not making fiscal sense to me at all. And I understand there's some reasons that bicyclers think that it's not quite good enough yet. But when is it will be good enough?
Yeah, so I'll chime in and then we'll kick it over to the Public Works Director. So yeah, we had an interest with the town council directing staff to work with, at that time, we had Sean Rose, our consultant, and a gentleman in the public, I don't think he's here this evening, Mr. Steve Lubin, on some concerns that he had about this project. We articulated at that time that we felt any alteration was going to lead to the possibility of losing the funding with Caltrans, and that more than likely it would result in increased cost for engineering. But ultimately, there was a request to see if we can get a compromise because there were some poor design choices, I think, or some design choices that never were really investigated that could have worked out better. And so with the consultant Sean Rose and at the time Cindy McCullough, before Lewis joined us here, they went back to the drawing board with NV5. We held the line on the cost and forced their hand to make alterations on work that they had already done that we felt that ultimately we felt that they didn't really explore all of the options that were available with Caltrans on the Caltrans right-of-way. And they did that, and I believe now we've reached a point with Mr. Lubin that we have a compromise that he's satisfied with that would cost us to finish that design just under $50,000 so that we could move forward. That's the ask. It's $48,700 to an already existing contract to make it a not to exceed of the 210 value. So, Lewis, if you can chime in and maybe broaden the scope of the conversation.
Thank you, Town Manager. Lewis, Public Works Director and Town Engineer. As we review the current plan, the 95% plan by NV5, it is apparent that the current design has put the pedestrian multipath on the street, on the pavement itself. And it is our expert opinion that we need to move this path to on the other side of the curb, out of the pavement for safety. And this will be safety for not only the pedestrian, but also the bicyclist and the motorist. And this design, we believe, it is my professional opinion that it really would instill the spirit and the character of Woodside, is putting pedestrian and bicyclist and motorist safety at first. So this redesign is what we're asking. The $48,700 is an amendment to NV5 to redesign the current plan to put the multi-path in a safe area behind the curb, out of the pavement.
Is that going to cost us more than just the design cost? In other words, this construction cost? To make those changes going to be an additional cost?
To answer Council Member Brown, yes, the estimated, in addition to construction costs, right now is very conservative. It's about $300,000 in addition, but we don't know that it's just a estimate by the designer. But when it comes to the actual construction, it really depends on the climate, in the bidding climate, and see. But the redesign would also changes the drainage as well, and that's we believe that's the bulk of that increase, is redesigning the storm drainage and this reconfigure, and also moving some of the drainage in a new location.
So are you saying it's going to be an $800,000 plus $300,000 construction cost plus the design costs? Is that what you're telling me?
That's correct, yeah. Right now, there's a $300,000 estimate of increase in construction costs. And today's we're asking for an amendment to the design, $48,700. That's also in addition to. That's correct.
Wow. Am I the only one troubled by that?
Well, I think we asked for this, and the improvements do end us in a better place for the long term. So
I'm not sure we were talking about another 300,000 construction costs.
I'm not here.
I don't remember that.
I hear you, but kind of feel like we got to do it right, I guess is where I'm coming from. But
When do we start drawing the line?
Where you're coming
guys?
from.
This is insane.
Are you in deliberations right now? Is it still a question?
Yeah, we're just, yeah.
Maybe we do
You want-
comment and then, unless do you have questions?
No, I was going to
Wanna do
chime in.
public comment?
Sure. All right, any member of the public want to talk on this? Yes, Son, welcome.
Hi, Council. Hassan Farkhande, Circulation Committee Chair. Couple of thoughts on this one. First, I strongly support the project. I think the fact that, again, we can't walk from here to the high school that serves our town is an oversight. And I think it was nice that during COVID, we got the $800,000 grant and we remembered it, and now we're hopefully not going to lose it. The thing that's annoying to me is the consultants who designed it came to Circulation, and we specifically asked them the question, can you put it outside? Because to Dan Drucker's credit, he found that 20 years ago or something, there was a gravel pathway outside the curb. And every time I drive by there now, I can't help but stare at it and be like, man, if you gave me a week and my gardening tools, I'd have most of it cleared. We asked them that question. They specifically said, no, it will not work out there. And then there was something about CEQA, environmental stuff, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out they were wrong. So to Steve Lubin's credit, and Steve, if you're here listening to me, you were correct. I appreciate it. I appreciate your tenacity on it. I appreciate Sean helping figure out. Louis, thank you for getting involved as well. But it's a little frustrating that now we're being asked for another almost $50,000 to correct the mistake they made with their own expert opinion mistake, basically, right? I don't think you have a choice, so I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I do think the project is very worthwhile. Hopefully it's not a $300,000 adder on top of the 800. But when you drive by there, it's like, that is the most elegant solution. They claim they walked every inch of it, and somehow, I don't know what assumptions they were working under that led them to where they are. So hopefully at least maybe we've negotiated a discount rate compared to the work they have to do or something along those lines. So despite my rambling thing, I fully support the project. I think that is the elegant solution. It is just frustrating that they designed it wrong and then people had to get involved to fix it, even though they were the experts and I gave them the benefit of the doubt. So shame on me. I'll be more diligent on that next time. But they straight up said, nope, we can't put it where you're telling us to put it. And clearly that was wrong. So again, thank you.
Thank you for that context. Ms. Gilbert.
Hello? Is on? Okay. What I'm hearing is that we're going to pave all around for bicyclists. Is that what you said? You said a lot, so I really am a little confused.
So right now, the pedestrian path is on the road, sharing that road with a bicycle lane. So it's all on the same road. What we want to do is redesign it to put the pedestrian path out of the road and put it on behind the curb.
Where are you talking about? What land? Along
280.
Woodside Road here?
On Woodside Road, east of 280.
To the high school.
To the high school.
To the high school. Okay. All right. We're not putting this through the town though. We're not contemplating that, I hope.
No, it's just from 280 down to the Alameda.
All right. I want to keep this now.
I
I could tell Bill, go get me something.
think you're going to have to hand it off to Mr. Drucker.
Thanks. So just representing the 3 HOAs east of 280, the residents are big time in favor of this project. That we're getting a little confused about the bicycle topic. The discussion today is about a pedestrian path. So it's allowing people to walk on the south side of Woodside Road from effectively 280 to the high school with a vision that in the next couple of years, you'll connect that to town center. So you'll be able to walk from the high school all the way to town center. Isan's correct. We were told in circulation that the pedestrian pathway had to be effectively attached to the road and pushed into the bike lane even a little bit. We learned in the last month that that's not true, that was incorrect. So the original routing we had all hoped for is what we're going to end up with, it looks like. Lewis and I went and walked it this morning. So we spent an hour together walking the road down there today. And what he has planned is going to be a very attractive and very useful addition to the town. So it'll be a nice decomposed gravel or asphalt pathway that is just inside on the side of Woodside Road on the south side. I think it's going to look great, and certainly lots of residents will use it. My guess is it's hard for me to imagine it'll cost more than what they're planning. So I'm really interested in the estimate of the cost more money, because now you don't have to go reconfigure all the curbs that were just put in by Caltrans. So it's just literally restoring a pathway that's already there and just opening it back up again. So I'm hoping there'll be a solution that actually saves us money, not adds on additional funding.
Thank you. Any other comments from public? All very useful tonight. Thank you very much. Okay, back to deliberations. Council. Member Abarish.
Yeah, I feel like this is, I appreciate Councilmember Brown's comments and thoughts, and I totally agree. I think we always have to be very aware and careful with expanding costs. Here, I feel like we're getting $800,000 of essentially free money, so we're going to be able to do this project for, my math is correct, it'll be total of $1.5 million project, and we're going to be paying a little over close to 500,000 from the town. Actually, is that my numbers correct? Something along those lines.
I think there's different measures in road money that will be funding this project, but yeah, essentially that's $800,000 of federal funding, and then ultimately any of the overages we would be timing out to fit into our budget and CIP.
Yeah, so I think we're getting a big benefit. We're not paying for the whole thing, but we'll get the full benefit of it, and I think it's a huge value to everyone who lives, in that area. I think I remember when we talked about this last time it came up, and there were a lot of people that were really looking forward to this project. And so, yeah, so I'd support it.
Great, thank you. Other comments from council?
Make a motion.
I would love to have a motion. Dick, do you want to make a motion, or do you want someone else to make it?
I think somebody else should.
Okay.
I'll make a a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the town manager to execute a contract amendment with NV5 in an amount of $48,700 and not to exceed a total of $210,308 for the design of Woodside Road bicycle and pedestrian improvements project.
Second.
Councilmember Alberish?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
No.
Councilmember Gold?
Yes.
Councilmember Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Domkowski?
Yes.
And with that, we'll close the consent agenda and moving on to old business, quarterly and annual review of license plate readers. I just thought maybe I would say one thing real quick, just for expectational reasons, just to clarify things. This is agendized. It's agendized as reviewing the reports and deciding whether to accept the reports per our contract. There is no vote tonight on deployment of license plate readers, although in deliberations, any member of the council can make a motion to for direction, future direction. So that might be something that comes out of that, but this is the extent of what we can do tonight on this topic and what we'll effectively be voting on at the end of it. So Jason, with that, I know we've got a lot going on and you have brought some significant resources to bear tonight. So I'll hand it off to you to talk about the report and introduce our leadership from the Sheriff's Office and representation from Flock.
Yeah, thank you. I'll start with that. Actually, we have Assistant Sheriff Myers here this evening. We have our Administrative Sergeant Nick Baragno here as well, and we have Lily with Flock as well to help answer any questions or any technical items that may come up. First, I just want to go over the attachments because there are quite a few. And so attachment 1 on this report is the ALPR annual report that comes directly from the Sheriff's Office. And this showcases roughly 5,027 hot list alerts that transpired over the year, 4,031 stolen license plates that went through the system, 38 stolen vehicles, 13 felony vehicles, and 945 alerts for investigation. 2 stolen vehicles were recovered, and the Woodside ALPR system led to the arrest of 4 suspects involved in various crimes in the town of Woodside. More information about specific cases in Woodside are available in that specific attachment. In attachment 2, this is the town of Woodside ALPR policy, which dictates how myself or the town manager audit, how that audit is performed. Attachment 3, this is the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office quarterly report. This is where they choose the 10 randomly searched searches to audit. And this is the document that I use to basically audit those 10 random searches on the quarterly report. So attachment 4 is that quarterly audit report from me, the town manager. And so we'll come back to that attachment after I'm done discussing the rest of these attachments. Attachment 5 is the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office ALPR policy. This is when we have to look at our policy in relation to whoever did the search. If it's San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, then we'll go to their policy to validate that they have a policy that matches ours. Attachment 6 is the San Mateo Police Department's policy. Attachment 7 is the Redwood City Police Department's policy. And then attachment 8, I had 2 different council members contact me asking me about the contract. So for good measure, we added that as an attachment. And then attachment 9 is the law enforcement contract that we have with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office. And so back to attachment 4, which is my quarterly audit report. So we took into consideration some of the concerns that had been brought to the attention of the staff and the town itself prior to my existence here in Woodside. And then over the last eight months, my engagement with the council, we determined that there was kind of a deeper investigation or more of a narrative that people would like to see rather than just checking of the boxes. And so ultimately, we sat down with, at that time, we still had Captain Frank Del Porto, who is now an assistant sheriff himself. And we sat down with Administrative Sergeant Baragno, and we went over each of the 10 audited inquiries that the sheriff's office had looked at, we got on the same page to just better understand any missing pieces that we could not decipher from the information that was provided to us. And so I just want to slowly go over my attachment 4, the ALPR quarterly report, the town manager audit, and just explain those differences. So we start within the policy comparing the audit with the policy section 3, and we go through section 10. And so section 3 is authorized purposes and prohibited uses. And so on inquiry 1, we're claiming compliance with the information we have, and we're stating that the reason is that the Woodside ALPR system was utilized was because there was a stolen car, and this reason complies with the town policy section 3, A, C, D, and G, and they're stated clearly as to what they are. We then go to section 4 of the policy, where we discuss data storage and protection. And then in this section specifically is for Flock, and there's a requirement that the town receive back from Flock very specific data on encryption, firewalls, authentication. And so the town has received that information, and is so confirming that to our understanding that's compliant as well. Then section 5, we go into the ALPR data access. And so since this first inquiry was made by the San Mateo Police Department, we then compare our policy to their policy to see if the ALPR data access is compliant, if the two policies jive with each other, and they in fact do. And so we go through each of those different sections of the policy 3 through 10 on each of the 10 inquiries that were randomly selected by the sheriff's office. And based on that, we have determined that within this quarter, we have compliance to our understanding. Now, we're making an inference here that ultimately the San Mateo Police Department, the Redwood City Police Department, and the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office is complying with their own policies. So that's an inference that we have to make in good faith. And basically, that really summarizes the quarterly report. The annual report is created by the Sheriff's Department, and they're here to discuss any questions you may have on that. But the town staff, myself included, we've deemed that compliant as well. Now, there has been talk, obviously, with what's transpiring with the company itself nationally and also locally, and we're obviously very aware of that. We're also aware, or we believe, that we may be the only agency locally that has such a robust policy and is meeting on a quarterly basis to discuss and kind of go over to make sure and continue to question the use of this technology in our community. I'm not aware of any other local agency that happens to be doing that. And so I think that that has served us very well, because at the moment, you know, knock on wood, with all of the different agencies that are being questioned for maybe data breaches, I am not familiar with any of the 3 agencies that we're currently working with being at the center of any of that controversy. Also, because this has been such an important topic to the town of Woodside, the town of Woodside has gone above and beyond to make sure that we're not on the canned contract with Flock. It was negotiated to make sure that we felt comfortable and that there were alterations made, and that also we created a policy. And so I think that we've created checks and balances here on some level that has led to maybe even better service. And so sitting down with the sheriff's office here in January, Sergeant Baragno, I think based off of engagement, based off of understanding this council, went through every single inquiry that has ever hit the town of Woodside ALPR system from inception up until the end of these 2 reports, and is stating to us that he sees absolutely no breach, that all of those were made by 3 different agencies: the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, Redwood City Police Department, and the San Mateo Police Department. And so for those reasons, we are stating that we believe we are currently compliant.
Thank you. Questions for staff or members of the Sheriff's Department or Flock? Go for it.
I do. I don't know if they wanted to say anything. That just want to give them that opportunity before I do have some questions for them too.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Sergeant Bronny with the Sheriff's Office and I got Assistant Sheriff Myers and Lily here with Flock to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, so this has been obviously a big, Lily, I sort of feel for you, taking a lot of heat the past certainly few weeks. So before I came here tonight on the news, the local news, there was a lot of stories about what's going on in Oakland and Contra Costa County and those sorts of, other places that are having problems. They mentioned the Mountain View as well. But one of the things that I heard was that Flock had just changed their policy statewide, that they were not allowing any federal access throughout the entire state of California on any of their systems. So maybe you can comment on that. I don't know if that's correct. I heard it on this Dan Noyes on the news.
Correct. Hi, council members. My name is Lily Ho. I'm the Public Affairs Manager for Flock Safety. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Council member, correct. We created that policy in March of last year, and that was to help agencies comply with state laws. And we instituted that for the state of Virginia as well as the state of California.
So that means that no federal agencies can access any Flock databases in California.
That, in addition to removing nationwide lookup from California agencies so that there could be no accidents.
Okay, so are any of the incidents we've heard about, Mountain View probably being the most notable, did any of those occur after this policy went into place?
No, it would not be possible.
Okay, I didn't know that. That was sort of the issue that I had there. And also, I've got one for the sheriff's office as well. Thank you, Lily. The town manager mentioned that you went through all of the inquiries since inception till roughly now.
Yes, that is correct.
So could you just describe the process of doing that? I mean, you certainly not to the audit level, but maybe you looked at the agency that made the inquiry?
Yes, so what happened is the system became live in May of 2023. So from there, I ran a month-by-month report every month from May of 2023. And I looked into all the search inquiries of what agencies made them. For the first 3 months, it was strictly just the sheriff's office. Then at that point, it went to Redwood City PD and then San Mateo PD. And it remained those 3 agencies throughout the life of the system.
Those are the only agencies that access our database?
The only 3 agencies that have access to the database.
By the way, is that true not only for the Woodside database, but for the sheriff's office database as well?
I cannot say that for the
can't
sheriff's
go.
office database, but based off of my knowledge of the sharing, that would not be accurate. The sheriff's office database shares with other agencies.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Got
Councilmember
some
Wall.
questions. I think I've got questions for the town manager, for our sheriff representatives, and for Ms. Ho. So I'm going to start with the town manager. So as our town manager, you oversee our contracts with Flock and the sheriff, right?
Yes.
I wanted to start off by asking about the verification of the request and confirm sharing model. So the staff report indicates that sharing is approved on a request and confirm basis, and that to date, no requests have been approved this year other than to the 3 authorized agencies, which are San Mateo County Sheriff, San Mateo Police Department, and Redwood City Police Department. However, Atherton's policy failed because the volume of requests made manual approval no longer feasible, leading to unauthorized access. So just to say it again, the staff report states we operate on a strict request and confirm basis. So given that Atherton admitted they stopped following this protocol because the volume of requests made it no longer feasible, can you confirm that a human being is physically reviewing every single request from outside agencies?
To answer that question, I would say that ultimately we're not engaging the request, is my understanding. So requests are coming in consistently from all over the state of California. And based off of I think, a conservative approach to maybe what is perceived direction from the council, even though it states in our policy that we can share with anyone in the state of California, that it has been kind of the inferred policy that pretty much any request that comes in that's not from Redwood City Police Department, San Mateo Police Department, or the sheriff's office themselves is just dismissed. It's not even reviewed. It's not even, it's not considered. And so ultimately, there may be an excessive amount of them, but it's not weighing us down as you're stating it's weighing Atherton down because we're not even engaging the request.
And so Mountain View recently discovered that their cameras were inadvertently set to nationwide and statewide sharing modes, which allowed hundreds of agencies to access data without the chief's knowledge. Have you personally logged into the Flock system or the transparency portal to verify that our sharing permissions are strictly limited to the 3 agencies listed in the report, the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, San Mateo PD, and the Redwood City PD, and that no batch or default settings have auto-populated other agencies?
I haven't personally logged into the ALPR system to review that. What I've done is I've reached out because right now, preparing this document while the story was breaking ultimately, I reached out to our representative at Flock and asked that specific question last week, is that having read the information, I was finding that there were 2 boxes that hypothetically could be checked that I was never made aware of, which was national and state. And I wanted confirmation from Flock that had never happened in Woodside. And so ultimately, that hasn't been rectified yet. I think that there has to be maybe a deeper dive, or maybe we can get an answer from Flock this evening. So that's why we went with Sergeant Baragno's personal look at and review of each individual request that has been made from that has been granted from 2023 until this moment. And so the way that I went about seeking to better understand the compliance, not being a user of the ALPR system because I'm not a law enforcement officer, was to reach out to Flock to better understand if they could answer that question for us. And at the moment, I don't have an answer.
Okay, moving on to the town manager audit, wanted to talk about its reliance on boilerplate language versus actual practice, and also our acceptance of Flock's written confirmation around their security practices. So in several audit inquiries, I'd point out inquiry number 2 and 3 as examples, the report marks the search as compliant by simply quoting the sheriff's written policy against immigration enforcement, rather than verifying what the officer actually did. The audit report relies on vendor promises rather than independent verification, which proved disastrous for Mountain View. So the question is, why does the town manager audit report use the exact same boilerplate language regarding federal immigration enforcement in every search conducted by the sheriff's office, which would be inquiries 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, and 10, regardless of the crime being investigated?
The really my perspective is that the Brady bill makes it a crime for a law enforcement officer to lie. And so ultimately I'm utilizing the policies that they have signed up for at their selected places of business, whether it be the sheriff's office or the San Mateo Police Department, Redwood City Police Department, because that's the only way that I have to compare, is to validate that the policy matches our policy, and it's a good faith level of trust at the moment. I'm definitely more than willing to look at different ways to enforce this policy, but unfortunately at this moment, this is the only understanding that I have. But I would definitely take any opportunities for a different way of validating this that you may think would be more efficient.
Under the data storage and protection section, the town manager audit states that compliance is met via an annual written confirmation from Flock. Mountain View relied on similar assurances only to discover their cameras were sharing data nationwide for months without their knowledge. Given that Flock admitted to system failures in Mountain View, is a written note from the vendor sufficient proof for Woodside? Or in your estimation, should we demand an independent technical inspection of our system settings?
It's compliant to the policy, I guess, is ultimately my job at the moment is to work with the policy that the town council has dictated and voted on as the policy that they would like me to utilize in order to create the quarterly report. And so I just, I really take direction from whether or not the council is interested in altering that policy. And until they are interested in altering that policy, my job is to comply with the policy. And ultimately, that is how the policy, that's how I infer the policy claims compliance it literally states in the policy that once a year, the town manager is to request that information from Flock and that is compliance.
All right. I want to talk a little bit about shadow sharing with federal agencies. I'm sure it's something you read about in the news reports. So state law and Woodside policy prohibits sharing data with federal agencies, including but not limited to for immigration enforcement. However, investigations in Oakland and San Francisco revealed that local officers were searching ALPR data on behalf of federal agencies by entering terms like FBI wanted suspect or ICE case into the search reason field. Here in Woodside, we authorize data sharing only with 3 agencies. What technical or policy controls prevent officers in those departments from searching Woodside's data on behalf of federal agencies?
Yeah, that's I'd say the Brady bill or whatever type of progressive discipline is utilized in those offices over breaking their own policies. And so there's really, my understanding, there's no way for me to, even within my office, let's just remove the ALPR policy, but if someone in my office is performing a function and they're claiming they're doing it in good faith, ultimately the assumption is that it's being done in good faith based off of them abiding by the town's policies. And then if it's found out that they're not abiding by those policies, I think that's when progressive discipline has to be made at each individual department. So that's another instance that I'm certainly open to different ways to validate that we're gaining compliance, but under the current policy and under the current structure of management of law enforcement for the town of Woodside, is a contract law enforcement organization rather than where I came from, where I managed the police chief. It's just a different dynamic. So if the town of Woodside had a police chief that reported to the town manager, it would be completely acceptable for me to treat that person's workspace as my own. They were reporting to me, and that ultimately I had a lot of rights to dig into that department. Here, it would be a little bit, I'm not exactly sure how I would go about reaching out to the police chief in San Mateo and to gain validation. It would be kind of accusatory to believe that that ultimately somebody is violating that. But I also live in reality, and I understand that it's been proven that that's being violated. So it's a matter of faith that there's a policy that's being followed by each organization, but I still defer to the council if they'd like another mechanism to try to prove that.
So if a Redwood City officer runs a search on our data for an FBI task force, would our audit catch it?
No, if somebody lied, if one of the things I saw from a desk item from Mr. Middleman that came in was just a really great summary of just nationally. And so you'll see these instances where somebody will be looking up their ex-wife or their ex-girlfriend's vehicle in other states. And so ultimately, if somebody is lying in the computer system, I don't believe that we're going to have, it's possible if we're if there's more cues, but it would be very difficult if there's a claim here on, let's say you pointed out number 2. Number 2 is stated as mail theft. And so I'm taking that at its face value, that I believe it's mail theft. But you raise a very good point, is that ultimately, is there a law enforcement officer making that claim and then doing a shadow drop of information to another agency? that could be happening, but that would be very accusatory of me to make that statement to a law enforcement officer. And so it's a good faith. It's a level of trust.
Councilmember Wall, yeah, I believe like the Oakland scenario, I'm not really familiar with it, but probably there was some sort of internal affairs investigation where they uncovered that their local officer was sharing with the federal government or immigration or whatnot. That would probably result in an internal affairs investigation. That's the same thing we would do if we found out someone had lied on a search or something like that. And that could, result in, time off, disciplinary action, progressive discipline. So that would be a violation of our internal policies as well as state law. So you'd be in trouble.
So just continuing on, Jason. So the staff report notes that there were 117,723 total search queries. Since we only audited 10 of them, could we run a keyword search across all of those queries? Justifications for red tag terms such as ICE, DHS, federal, deportation, HSI, to ensure that our data isn't being used to violate California law?
I believe we can run that search. I don't know if it will garner, you've pointed out that there's kind of the shadow idea and stuff, but I believe that it would be totally capable for us to run a search about cases. I would.
Yes,
assume.
Councilmember, we, for our sheriff's office database, we routinely do that with county council.
So just, I have a whole host of questions for you all that will kind of delve into. I'm more asking, kind of the town manager run the search? I'm wondering, in your capacity as the custodian of the contract, would you run that search? And maybe you don't know.
Yeah, my belief is that I can't, and I think we've had this conversation on multiple occasions, is that my interpretation of our policy, my interpretation of the policy at the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office is that you have to be a sworn officer or literally work within the department itself to have the access in order to make a search query of that magnitude. Now, we have a different level of access that our assistant town manager has. That was provided to us as kind of the staff liaison, but it is completely different than the actual APR system to do an audit of that magnitude. Well, just an audit in general, we would be leaning on requesting that audit being made by the administrative sergeant.
I want to turn to the statistical significance of the audit itself. So the ALPR quarterly report relies on an audit of only 10 random searches out of nearly 118,000 total queries. In Atherton, unauthorized searches numbered in the thousands, and many lacked proper justification. So because our audit reviewed only 10 random searches to determine compliance, and given that there were over 117,000 queries, this sample size represents less than 0.01% of the total activity. Can you confidently certify to this council that the system is compliant with our privacy policy when 99.99% of the search queries were never examined?
Yeah, I can say it's compliant with our policy because our policy clearly states we're to only audit 10.
Would you commit to a more robust audit that flags incomplete or suspicious search justifications?
I would submit to the will of the council.
In Menlo Park, officers were conducting searches with insufficient justifications, such as simply typing in crime. In Tiburon, an investigation revealed that 23 agencies potentially violated privacy protections. Yet their audit of 5 searches per month missed these violations completely. Since rogue officers often hide searches by entering vague terms like investigation or crime, could town staff run an automated keyword audit of all 117,723 justification fields rather than relying on a manual review of just 10?
Yeah, in order to do that, I believe we would have to be given access to the system as though we were a law enforcement officer to run a query like that. And so ultimately, I would just defer to a Flock. Is that a service that the town itself could actually purchase from you? My understanding is currently within our contract, the default administrator falls to the administrative sergeant. And so this would be another instance where we would be reliant to make the request to run that query through Sergeant Baragno.
All right, I want to turn our focus to data retention and deletion. So Woodside's policy dictates that data must not be stored beyond 60 days. However, the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office policy defaults to a 1-year retention period unless the local jurisdiction requests otherwise. So, since our policy strictly limits retention to 60 days, but the Sheriff's Office policy defaults to 1 year, can you provide technical verification from Flock that the deletion setting for Woodside's specific cameras is set to 60 days and that overrides the sheriff's default 1-year retention policy?
Yeah, that's my understanding from our contract with Flock is that we're on a system that automatically deletes after 60 days. The retention policies for each individual agency, my understanding is ultimately they're following along the lines of like a hot list item, right? That they're following up on a case. And then our policy also allows the retention to last longer than 60 days to follow the normal legality of retaining information based off of it being in a case itself. And so ultimately there's some instances where hypothetically in perpetuity data would be stored because it was involved in a case. But my understanding is based off of our contract with Flock is that it is deleted after 60 days.
Do you have any documentation that shows that?
Just the contract itself.
The staff report states that Flock automatically manages the deletion cycle. Have you performed an independent test to verify that data captured 61 days ago is definitively gone from the server? Or are we relying solely on vendor assurances?
Yeah, we're reliant on vendor assurances.
2 more topics to cover. Thank you so much for bearing with me with these questions. So on the topic of managing hot lists, the staff report notes that hot lists, which are lists of wanted plates, are downloaded daily and resulted in over 5,000 alerts. Our system downloads hot lists from state and national databases. Do we filter these lists to ensure they do not include civil immigration warrants or administrative warrants from ICE?
That's a great question. I'd have to really defer to the administrative sergeant on that.
And then the final topic is system efficacy. So there is a disparity between the volume of surveillance and the actual local public safety outcomes. The annual report states that in 2025, our cameras performed over 3.1 million scans and generated 5,027 hot list alerts. However, this massive intake of data is credited with assisting in the recovery of only 2 stolen vehicles and 4 arrests for crimes specifically occurring within Woodside. Given that one of the significant investigations cited in the report actually occurred in Portola Valley, and considering that cities like Santa Cruz and Los Altos Hills recently terminated their contracts because they determined the privacy risks outweighed the benefits, how does the town justify the mass surveillance of millions of drivers when the system yields such a statistically negligible return for resolving crimes inside our own borders?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think ultimately, we have 26 cameras. There was a request from the council for a 27th near Runnymede, and so we're awaiting installation. And so one car could travel through town and be on all 26 of those cameras. And so they would account for part of that million that's going through. I think that this is a question in the 21st century that you're asking. Ultimately, I commute consistently over the bridge and there I am. I get something in the mail constantly tracking essentially where I'm headed. And that's kind of the where the United States or where the world currently stands at the moment. I have something in my pocket that knows exactly where I am, knows a lot of my habits, is listening to what I'm saying in a lot of instances. I would say that for me, as the town manager, I don't reside in the town of Woodside, but one of my biggest fears for the town of Woodside is for the safety and security of the folks that do live here. and that ultimately that trade-off is beneficial to the community. And I stand by that. And I understand the consequences of what's currently transpiring, but ultimately, I really believe, rather than being as transparent as we are, that ultimately we're showcasing where these cameras are located to people that may want to cause harm in our community. And so I would be on the opposite side of that, of removing the public facing documentation that shows everybody where these cameras are located, because I believe that in the context of the security for the town of Woodside, that ultimately we're going to lean on this type of technology rather than the escalated costs that it means to bring extra officers on foot patrol within the community. We're going to see less of that because the cost of that is escalating, and we're going to have to really rely on the technology. And I think we have an opportunity here tonight. Flock is here. We have the assistant sheriff is here. I think that there's an interest in the use of the technology. There's an interest in finding a balance for the security of the data, and that we can make incremental positive change with the current system that we have. And I believe that the town is justified to maintain this system.
Thank you very much. So turning to the sheriff, thank you so much for being here tonight. So I'm not sure which of you plan to answer, but I'll just direct my questions at both of you. Because I'm interested in asking some questions about how you operationalize Woodside's privacy policy. Because while the town manager oversees the contract, the sheriff's office is actually the end user of the system. And based on the discrepancies in the sheriff's own policy documents versus Woodside's policy and the specific failures seen in nearby agencies, I just wanted to ask a few questions. So the first topic goes to the shadow sharing issue that I asked our town manager a couple of questions on it, and it's been widely reported in the news. So news reports from Oakland and San Francisco revealed that local officers were not officially sharing data with FBI or ICE, but were instead running searches on their behalf by typing in terms like FBI wanted or ICE case into the search reason field. Investigations in Oakland found that while data sharing was technically disabled, officers were simply running searches on behalf of federal agents they worked with. Do San Mateo County deputies that are assigned to federal task forces like the FBI or DEA have access to Woodside's ALPR data?
Yes.
And so what technical barrier stops them from manually running a plate for a federal partner?
The fact that it would be a violation of our policy, and if they were cooperating with immigration, it'd be a violation of state law.
Okay, but there's no technical barrier.
No, you're relying on the deputy's integrity.
And your report shows over 117,000 queries were run. Since we can't manually review all of them, would it be possible to run an automated keyword search on the justification or the reason field for all 117,000 past queries, looking for terms like ICE or immigration, homeland security investigation, things like that?
Yes, the export file is basically in an Excel format, so we can search for any kind of words you want in there. We were actually doing an audit of our sheriff's office one, and we found DHS was in it. A little more investigations, we found out it was actually Desert Hot Springs PD. So we do routine audits. In addition to that, we are also working with the civil grand jury. We've provided them an audit for our last 60 days, as well as our policy. Flock's going to be working with them to ensure that we're operating within the best policies and procedures. But yes, we can do a key search word for all the searches we've had.
Okay, that's really fantastic to hear. I wanted to turn to the conflicting retention policies. So there's a direct conflict between the sheriff's office policy and the town of Woodside's policy regarding how long data is kept. As a contract city, Woodside's situation is different from peer communities like Menlo Park, Mountain View, and Atherton, because Woodside maintains legislative ownership of the cameras while delegating operational control to an external agency, the sheriff. So this creates a pretty unique policy versus practice gap. doesn't exist in cities with their own police chiefs. Specifically, there are conflicting retention policies, 1 year for the sheriff's policy, 60 days for the Woodside policy. Unlike peer cities where the city council and police chief can align on one policy, Woodside has a direct conflict between its local ordinance and the agency operating the system. Woodside's policy mandates the data must be deleted after 60 days, but the sheriff's policy states that the data is retained for a minimum of 1 year. This creates risk, right? While the sheriff's policy contains a clause allowing for different retention periods, if a local government requests it, this requires technical segregation. If Woodside's cameras are not strictly siloed from the sheriff's general network, Woodside's data could default to the county's 1 year retention period, violating Woodside's privacy ordinance. Can you explain how you segregate Woodside's data from the rest of the county's data to ensure that our 60-day limit is technically enforced and not overridden by the county's 1 year default?
Yes, they're two completely different systems. So Woodside is on its own network, and I've personally verified that the data, I think there's some confusion in terms as far as data retention here. The data retention for the 60 days is part of the searchable database that as an investigator, I'd go in and conduct a search. I personally know that because it affected one of your residents when I was not able to do a search at the 61-day mark and look for a suspect vehicle when I was asked to do that. So I know that policy, I know the retention firsthand is 60 days and there's no longer any information left to it. Where the confliction is, I think, or the confusion is, once that information becomes part of a case, then it's part of a criminal investigation, and then it falls under the standards of the evidence code, legal proceedings, and the case, and the progression through the court system. There's not going to be any kind of confusion as far as the 60 days versus the sheriff's office retention policy because they operate on two completely different systems.
Thanks. In Mountain View, I want to talk about Mountain View for a minute. So Mountain View recently suspended their program because their cameras were inadvertently set to nationwide sharing mode without the chief's knowledge, which allowed federal agencies, including the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, among a number of other agencies, to access their data. So essentially, Mountain View discovered their cameras were sharing data with federal agencies because of a default setting they didn't know was on. When was the last time, if ever, someone in your office physically looked at the sharing configuration screen for Woodside's specific cameras to verify they are not set to nationwide or statewide sharing?
I personally did about a month ago.
And what did you learn?
I'm sorry?
And what did you discover?
They're off. And then when I went and manually did a network search of every network inquiry, I verified that no outside agencies other than the Sheriff's Office, Redwood City, and San Mateo PD utilized the database.
Similar to Mountain View Police Department, could the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office undertake a deeper review to determine whether nationwide or statewide sharing has ever been enabled in Woodside?
There's no way to tell if the switch was on or if we're going to call it a switch, which allowed that. But I know personally that since I've gone through every single one, that if it was on at some point, it was never utilized because of the search.
Okay. Turning to hot list integrity, your system automatically downloads hot lists, which are lists of wanted license plates from state and national databases. However, these lists can sometimes include civil immigration warrants or administrative warrants that do not represent criminal threats. The sheriff's policy states that hot lists are downloaded daily from state and national databases. Do you apply a filter to these lists to ensure they do not contain civil immigration warrants?
Yes, for the information that's downloaded, we call it through CLETS, which is the California Law Enforcement Telecommunications. I might get the acronym wrong, but that's where all the warrants come through. There would be no immigration warrants going through that state database. Likewise, too, if we did have any external hot lists, if it popped up on our screen and it showed that it was an immigration violation or immigration warrant, we would simply ignore it.
So if a plate hits on a non-criminal immigration detainer, would your deputies be alerted?
No, not that I've ever seen.
All right, turning to the audit sample size, the quarterly audit reviewed only 10 searches out of tens of thousands. In Atherton, unauthorized searches numbered in the thousands. Do you believe that a sample size of 10 is statistically significant enough to catch a rogue officer misusing the system?
I was following the Woodside policy.
Would you be able to increase the audit sample size to at least 1% of all queries for the next report?
That would be determined on the board, but also number would fluctuate because 1% 1 month or 1 quarter could be completely different than 1% another month. So
But there'd be no like technical impediment to you increasing the audit size to 1%.
just manual labor. These searches are done by me personally through a randomized number generator, and I manually pick those out. So it's very labor intensive.
Got it. Atherton, which has its own police department, failed to follow its privacy policy because the commander admitted that manually reviewing every sharing request was no longer feasible due to the volume of requests. So Woodside's challenge is, we're asking the sheriff to enforce a strict request and confirm sharing model for Woodside that is more restrictive than what you likely practice in other parts of town. Because San Mateo County Sheriff's Office deputies manage vast amounts of data across the county, there is a risk they may apply batch approvals, the specific error that caused Menlo Park's breach, rather than the individual manual review required by Woodside's policy. Can you say whether that's happening in Woodside?
Yeah, so I think we're talking about when you say request, we're using it interchangeably between 2 different items here. One is a request to actually conduct a search within the database, and that was Redwood City, San Mateo, and the Sheriff's Office. The request to utilize or have access to that system comes directly to the administrative sergeant, which is me. And I have not approved any other requests that come through, and that is set for a one-on-one review with the Town of Woodside's Town of Woodside system. There is an option in the system to, if someone requests access, automatically gets it. I don't necessarily know the case with other cities, but that option may have been turned on, is not on with the Town of Woodside.
Got it. All right, thank you. Ms. Ho from Flock, I have some questions for you. So as you probably guessed, most of my questions are based on the documented failures in neighboring towns. So I wanted to touch on Mountain View first. The Mountain View police suspended their program because their cameras were inadvertently set to nationwide sharing mode, which Flock admitted was a system failure on their part. Can Flock provide a written confirmation that Woodside's default installation setting is local only, and that a software update cannot silently revert our sharing permissions to nationwide?
We can provide that written.
Thank you. So your company assured Mountain View that protections were in place, yet the chief later stated that the Flock system circumvented the protections we purposefully built. Why should Woodside trust your current assurances if your system previously overrode local configurations?
I don't believe that that's true. When the dates at question for Mountain View were done during August to November of 2024. This is when they were on a pilot program with Flock. They were not yet customers. They were testing out the product. They became customers in January, and I assume that's when their policies fell into place.
So given what happened in Mountain View involving the National Lookup Tool, where federal agencies access data despite local prohibitions, I have a few more questions on that topic. So there was a senator's oversight inquiry revealed that 75% of Flock's law enforcement customers are enrolled in the National Lookup Tool, which permits searches across jurisdictions. Would you be able to provide a technical report confirming that Woodside is not one of those agencies and that the national lookup feature is hard disabled in our configuration?
Similar to your first question, yes, we can do that.
So in Menlo Park, police shared data with agencies in Texas and Illinois, attributing the breach to a glitch or a batch of requests that were approved inadvertently because of human error. Menlo Park officials suggested that a batch of access requests might have been approved largely by accident due to this system glitch or UI design failure. Does your system currently allow a select all or batch approval function for incoming data requests?
That was probably when they were by accident on National Lookup. National Lookup is not possible to enroll in for any agencies within California and Virginia.
Okay, so you're saying that that would have only happened if they were on National Lookup.
Correct.
So moving on to the shadow sharing topic, Atherton police claimed that Flock's system prevents searches containing keywords like ICE. However, records from Oakland and other jurisdictions show successful searches for terms like ICE case and FBI. Our understanding is that Flock prevents searches containing keywords like that, but press reports show logs with search reasons like ICE case being successfully processed. So can you clarify, does your system hard block specific keywords in the search justification field?
Yes, we allowed.
Or does it merely discourage them?
We allowed for that, those search term blockings. It's a feature in our product that was implemented last summer. Additionally, since December of last year, we have a drop-down tool for pre-filled search terms, and the search terms come from Nebris. And this is to avoid vague terms, like you mentioned earlier, like crime, but also to help with jurisdictions' data analysis.
Would you be able to provide a list of prohibited terms?
Well, at this point, I think we can provide a list of Nebris of the terms of our dropdown.
On the topic of data deletion, so Woodside's contract stipulates a 60-day retention period, but residents have raised concerns about whether data is truly wiped or just hidden. When data is deleted from your cloud, is it immediately overwritten or does it exist in a backup server or soft delete state for a period of time?
Data sanitation is a key part of our data security protocols. It allows us to maintain certifications like the FBI CJIS certifications and allow us to be on the AWS GovCloud.
Would Flock be able to provide an automated certificate of destruction log that proves Woodside's data is physically gone after 60 days?
I think we can provide you the certifications.
Is there a distinction between a certificate of destruction log or the certifications that you referenced in terms of like the security certifications that a company gets to indicate their level of security practices?
You know, I've never been asked for a log of data deletion, but it does happen on a 24-hour every rolling basis.
Okay. Would you be able to look into that and what to determine whether or not a certificate of destruction log is feasible and could be provided?
Yes.
Last question. Flock offers features beyond license plate reading, such as Flock Freeform, which allows searching for vehicles based on visual characteristics rather than just plates. Does the software package Woodside is currently paying for include Flock Freeform or any object, people, or sound detection analytics?
For our ALPRs, it is Freeform only for vehicle characteristics. It does not look at people or animals or anything else.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Other questions from council?
I do.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
They could, if they want to go first.
Yeah, you
So
spoke.
if you want me to go first, sure. Yes, A question for the sheriff's department. Have you seen any evidence of any violations of the program, the flock, since you started with the Woodside? Any Woodside
No,
impact whatsoever?
sorry, no, not at all.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. I've got a few questions. One, first, I appreciate going through what happened in Mountain View. That level of detail that it happened at a certain time interval. I noticed that the Mountain View representatives were pretty vague about the timing of when it happened. It almost sounded kind of urgent, like it happened just now, but that does not seem to be the case. I also wanted to ask, I appreciate our new assistant sheriff, Mark Myers, being here. By the way, I think I've worked with members of the sheriff's department for something like 30 years, dating back to Don Horsley. And I think our new assistant sheriff, I would rank him as the highest. My respect for him and the work that he's done surpasses anybody I've ever known at the sheriff's office. So thank you for being here tonight. It shows us how important this is that you were here.
I appreciate
it. For those who don't know, Mark headed up SWAT, the bomb squad, the K-9 unit. Now he heads up all operations for the sheriff's office, and very well deserved. But I just wanted to ask you, because one of the comments that was made in the questions, and I thought they were really good questions, by the way, were that the number of people that we may have caught in Woodside for Woodside crimes. But I understand that, this is a network where somebody may commit a crime here. You may catch them in Foster City. I remember the chief at Hillsborough. I forgot his name now. Actually, he's with the sheriff's office now, I think, maybe, or he's with emergency services.
Nelson Cordaway.
Nelson, exactly. I had breakfast with him once a few years ago. But he mentioned that somebody from Portola Valley had committed a crime and they caught them at the Hillsdale Mall the same day. So you never know where you're going to catch anybody. And I assume we catch people in Woodside who committed crimes in Redwood City or other places as well. But could you comment on that, just the sheer numbers of, the millions of cars that may go through? And a lot of them are us, but I mean, it's just, we pass a lot of cameras, but the efficacy of what you actually hit on and whether that's Woodside or not Woodside.
I think you get a good mixture. Like I was formerly in San Carlos, we would get a lot of times we'd have cars that would commit a burglary in West Menlo Park, and then we would get them up in San Carlos off of Crestview. So and that was using Menlo Park or Atherton's, the license plate readers. So having that network is really what makes the system great and kind of spreads that umbrella of protection, over the county. As far as the report, we can give you more detailed and maybe give you some more examples. It's just a deep dive we have to do.
Okay. And the last thing I wanted to mention, I have some comments. I'll save them because I know this is sort of a question period here. But I did want to, one of the things that I noticed is that there was a lot of mention of failures of other agencies, Atherton, Mountain View, Oakland, et cetera, but not the sheriff's office. That's the one that I haven't heard any breaches from, that really come out of your location in Redwood City. And I think I heard correctly that my question is that does seem to be the case?
As far as we could, as far as we can tell, we are in the process of looking at doing a full audit of all of our all of the reads we've had since we had the system. This is very labor intensive, but I think we have a great relationship with Flock. Any changes to make our system more robust, whether it's search terms or whatever, they implement it right away. So I think we really have a good relationship with Flock, and that's kind of why I think we have avoided a lot of these things that other agencies, unfortunately, have had to deal with. And just for your knowledge, like I'm one of the system administrators, Nick is, and then our technical services director. So really only 3 people have access to make any of those changes.
Okay, thank you. And I did have something. I was just reminded of what our mayor said just before he opened this thing up, and that is that the purpose here tonight is to see if this isn't a quarterly review and an annual review that we have on whether or not we're in compliance with the policy that we set up. And I think that's what's before us tonight. If we want to make changes to those policies and require deeper audits or deeper certifications or other things, we would have to decide that. But I think until we do, we're sort of at the, this is what we've demanded of you to do. And we're here to see whether or not that's been certified, at least to our satisfaction. So thank you for being patient with those.
And then also just last week, we just updated our LPR policy. So I will get that to the town manager. We actually included per Supervisor Spears' request, we actually put a language in there where the cameras won't be used for any kind of First Amendment protest or anything like that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Son, do you have something?
I just have a few questions. Guys, how long did it take to complete that search of all, from the start of the system till now?
Took me approximately 2 hours.
And how long does it usually take you to prepare for this quarterly meeting, in total, including anyone who helps you with preparing for it?
It's just me. I'm the only one who has access to it per the policy. It's probably about an hour to run the reports and complete it all.
Okay, in total, including drive time, everything, how long would you say you spend quarterly for this whole process?
This quarter is a little bit more intense than other ones, but probably close to 5 hours if you factor everything in.
Okay. Jason, can I ask you how long does it take our resources to go through this process quarterly?
Yeah, we internally, staff feel that this item has been contentious at least since its inception. And so we're constantly trying to figure out ways to really show compliance and dig deeper. And so in this instance, I mean, we definitely spent substantially more time than that. We met with the sheriff's office for over 2 hours. And then we changed our reporting structure completely. And so preparing for this, I mean, I would say it was like 12 hours of just really deeper discussion. We're really trying to figure out how we can bring about a better level of compliance or showing a narrative rather than just the check boxes that we were showing before.
Thank you.
I've got a related question here. One of the things that's just been on my mind with all this is the issue of oversight governance. And the reporting relationship we have with our sheriff and the department here has been outsourced to an advisory volunteer committee. And the question I have really, and of course, it's been something that's bothered me, like, should we be outsourcing an outsourced policing department when it's the single largest budget item that we have, and with everything that's going on with safety and security that's on this, I mean, our entire agenda to come is still about safety issues in town, and of course, the scrutiny that's going up on these cameras. So my question for you is, can you give us a little bit of color? What is the normal reporting relationship that you have with the councils that you serve? Do you talk to the councils? Do you talk to some advisory body, or, I mean, direct relationship, or?
Prior San Carlos experience, once a year, I would provide a annual report to the council that would have all sorts of statistics, community engagement events we do. In San Carlos, we meet once a month. Just my admin sergeant, Nick's counterpart, will meet with the Traffic and Planning Commission just to go over any traffic complaints, parking issues, stuff like that. So that's usually the schedule for San Carlos. And it's pretty much the same thing for Millbury, a yearly annual report to the city council, same for Half Moon Bay. What we're trying to do is align them all kind of in the same time frame, so that way we can actually do an overall sheriff's office annual report to encompass everything. But at San Carlos, I would report to the council once a year on our annual report, and then we did monthly traffic meetings with the DPW.
Okay. And Jason, in your experience, what is the proper reporting relationship versus maybe what we have?
Yeah, for me in my last position in Wairika, we would oscillate once 2 meetings a month. The first meeting, the fire chief would give an update to the council, and then on the second meeting, the police chief would address the council.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you both. I'm just so council knows, I'm going to ask in deliberation for a straw poll on direction to change the relationship that we have with the sheriff's department to be a direct reporting relationship with council going forward. So in addition to any comments you might have, and this sounds like there's going to be plenty, if you could just addendum this issue of what your thoughts are, I would very much appreciate it on the issue of reporting. Any other questions from council before we open up public comment? Okay. Public comment. We are going to open public comment for old business item A, quarterly and annual review of license plate readers. Got 3 in the Zoom room, and Kimberly Wu has been up for about an hour, so why don't we start with her?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Wu, and I'm a community organizer for Services, Immigrant Rights, and Education Network, which serves our immigrant and refugee communities in San Mateo County. And on behalf of Siren, I strongly urge Woodside to pause the ALPR program. It puts our communities in danger. ALPR data from neighboring communities has been hacked and misused, and this data has been shared with federal agencies that are violently attacking communities across the country. The Flock company cannot be trusted, as they impose dangerous surveillance tools with documented instances of ICE accessing this ALPR data to terrorize our communities and separate our families. Simply auditing Flock data regarding ICE cooperation could actually produce a false negative, because according to DHS's own data policies, ICE does not leave any trail and audit logs on any ALPR except their own. In other words, we may not see if ICE accessed the town's data because ICE purposely and systematically refuses to leave a trail. Additionally, even in the potential case that Woodside police data is not directly shared with ICE, our local police data is shared with other police departments who may collude and expose our personal data to ICE, granting this notorious agency access to our private information. The power of Flock's ALPR is to collect, retain, and analyze location data for every driver on the road violates our Fourth Amendment right to a reasonable expectation of privacy by essentially enabling mass warrantless tracking that stalks an individual's movements to the second in a twisted form of persistent dragnet surveillance. In fact, this technology creates such massive data privacy constitutional violations that Siren, along with CARE California, ACLU Foundation of Northern California, and Electronic Frontier Foundation, sued the city of San Jose for Flock and ALPR data extreme invasiveness. This town must end their Flock contract because Flock's unblinking cameras automatically retain the locations of drivers, enabling police to instantly reconstruct everyone's movements. With Santa Cruz City Council ending their contract and Mountain View City Council pausing their contract, our Bay Area neighbors boldly send the message that community trust is necessary for public safety. We are calling on Woodside leadership to stop using Flock cameras and ensure no town data is shared directly or indirectly with ICE or Border Patrol. Standing by our values means choosing community trust, privacy, and immigrant safety over unconstitutional hyper-surveillance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in the room that would like to speak before we go back to Zoom? Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. Hey, everyone. My name's Matt. I have a few just concerns about the annual report. Probably the first of which was my notes got soaked on the way here, but I'll do my best here. I really just want to ask the council just to pump the brakes on accepting this annual report, right? Everyone in the room here has heard about what happened in Mountain View, and I personally, I think that's kind of deeply disturbing. It's a good point that what was happening there was never uncovered by the reporting that was happening there. So I think our report kind of really needs a serious rethink. I think the report relies too heavily on self-certification by the vendor. The report explicitly states that compliance means receiving an annual written confirmation from Flock. We are accepting that the system is secure simply because the vendor wrote us a note saying it's secure. In Mountain View, that same vendor enabled nationwide sharing without permission from the city. So letter of assurances from a vendor that overrides security settings, to me, that does not sound like an audit. That sounds like a Trojan horse. There's a nationwide scandal in the last year that has been unfolding over Flock's, I think, lack of security. So this model of self-certification is unacceptable in my view. Mountain View did not discover their own illegal vulnerabilities because Flock told them about it. They discovered it because they demanded their own investigation. And I think it's wild that until tonight, I didn't hear about any verification of the settings that are even in our dashboard. That should have been in the annual report, and it was not. So the Woodside staff, town staff is recommending that we accept the report tonight. But I think continuing business as usual there ignores the reality of what's happening right now. We cannot continue just blindingly trusting a vendor that I think has lost the confidence of our community. So I want to urge the council to reject the report tonight. Tell the sheriff's office that we need an independent audit, a technical audit, not just a policy alignment review, which is what we have right now. I think our community just deserves a better approach. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll move back to the Zoom room. Michelle Lapidus.
Hi, thank you.
Hi. Welcome.
My name is Michelle Lapidus, and I am a lifelong San Mateo County resident. I'm also a volunteer with the ACLU San Mateo County chapter, but I'm speaking today in my personal capacity. I'm also here to request that you pause Woodside's ALPR program. We're all members here in San Mateo County. You know, we drive through Woodside, we dine in Woodside, we shop in Woodside, even if we don't live there, we study there, we do, you know, we are subject to the cameras just as much as anyone who lives there. And we know that this program puts the Woodside community in danger. The fact that there hasn't been any problems with the Woodside data yet does not predict that there won't be future issues. It's great that that nothing has been discovered at this point, that we've been able to get some assurances from the sheriff's department in terms of their review. We don't necessarily know what's going on with the work at San Mateo PD and Redwood City PD. I think there's a bit too much concern with looking like you're accusing rather than just doing your job of auditing. And so that we want to make sure that our data continues to be safe. And we know that it's not safe in Flock's hands. They have been caught in national reporting, making one false statement after another about their technological controls and safety. Their CEO claimed that Flock was limiting cross-state border access after data breaches across state lines were revealed by journalists. So I think it's really important, the fact that Flock is also involved in providing support for audits or other policy compliance is a big red flag. And I think that we need to pause and make sure that you have full understanding and take the time to understand the high risk consequences of ALPR abuse. I think there's a little too much acceptance of the status quo and the fact that, oh, well, we give up privacy every time we drive across a bridge, so we should be able to give up privacy here as well. I think that's a little just too much of a just giving up and not looking at the writing on the wall. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone here in the room that would like to go next as we alternate back and forth? Mr. Middleman?
Good evening. David Middleman, Woodside resident. I had to throw out my original speech because you guys covered it all. But I wanted to touch on something that hasn't come up, which is Flock's technical infrastructure. So for those of you that don't know, I have 14 years experience in the technical industry. I lead software teams. I deal with PII and HIPAA data at a pharmaceutical company. I've dealt with IoT devices at other companies and for DARPA. And in past lives, I've held a security clearance. There were a lot of technical deficiencies that were found along with the operational trust deficiencies that occurred. The Flock cameras that are out in town run an old, discontinued, non-patched, up-to-date version of Android Things. Any new OS vulnerability discovered today will never receive an official fix, which means the only way to patch is to replace or fundamentally re-architect that device. For a long-lived public safety program that locks Woodside in a permanent technical debt and known vulnerable software at the edge of our network. Independent researchers have demonstrated that pressing a specific button sequence on the back of those cameras causes it to broadcast a Wi-Fi hotspot. Once connected, an attacker can enable the debugging bridge and obtain root access to that device in 30 seconds. Because there is no secure boot or strong firmware integrity checking, an attacker can load their own firmware, falsely or suppress plate reads, or quietly exfiltrate data without the vendor or agency noticing. Cameras are configured with hard-code Wi-Fi SSIDs. They will automatically join a network with that name when that name is present, which enables evil twin or rogue AP attacks from any nearby laptop or hotspot. Basically, you could drive up to a camera, get access to it. Traffic captures and public research have shown credentials and other sensitive information being sent without modern protections such as TLS encryption or controlled channels, opening the door for man-in-the-middle attacks. These cameras talk to our cell towers in town. The images and configuration data are stored unencrypted on the device, and researchers have found legacy factory test images still present, indicating poor data wiping practices and making physical theft of a camera a data breach. There's no mandatory two-factor authentication for officers, like in town when we access our emails. And it is to note that Flock does have a SOC 2 and ISO 27001 certifications. Those certifications were issued in 2023 and 2024. However, those certifications are internal security and operational practices over time. They don't specify that devices are free of vulnerabilities. In other words, the system can be SOC 2 compliant and still have edge devices that are easy to compromise with single-factor logins and highly sensitive tools. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the Zoom room. Fixin, San Mateo County.
Hi, I'm actually a person. I'm Nancy Goodban. I live in Redwood City. My brother-in-law does own a home in Woodside. I'm speaking on my own, not as a representative of any organization. Thank you for the time that you're taking to discuss this, and I agree with the others. Please look into pausing your Flock safety contract. I know it would be at a later date, but Flock has announced plans to connect with data brokers. Their data has been used to surveil protesters, even to track down women who have had an illegal abortion. These kind of threats to the privacy of anyone who drives through Woodside are dangerous to community safety, and these dangers outweigh the benefits. I'm glad there's no breach yet, but it's happened elsewhere, and so it can happen here. It also makes it hard to trust the company. They are the ones that control the data, they control the software, and I, for one, am not confident in their promises. Flock has screwed up in other cities and made mistakes. It can't just be a matter of faith if it involves my personal privacy. Mountain View and Santa Cruz canceled their contracts with Flock because the company misused the data and made it available for purposes that are against the county's policy, the city's policies. In Mountain View, they found it through an internal audit. Flock had turned on a data setting allowing the feds to access data. They say they won't do that again. I want to take on something more than faith. Both cities concluded that even though the license plate data do help the police, the risk to community privacy and safety is too high. Santa Cruz found that out-of-state agencies had access to data. They concluded the risk of generating fear in the community made the Flock system too high a risk for the community. Half Moon Bay is looking at the use of Flock later this month or March. In a balance between our personal privacy rights and the right of the government or a private company to use our data for its own purposes, please come down on the side of our privacy rights. We have seen way too much overreach by the government in the last few months. We don't need more. Thank you.
Thank you. I think do we have anybody else? Yes. Come right back. Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, Jason. There's actually 3 topics tonight I'm going to talk on. This is the second one, so I appreciate the efficiency. You guys know I'm going to be here. We're here every single time. And I'll admit, it was quite lonely for parts of the last 3 years. I am heartened to see the number of people who've taken up the mantle on this one. Unfortunately, I think it is because of the number of missteps that Flock has had. So it's a sad reason to do it, but I'm glad to see the end result either way. I want to start this by saying I support the sheriffs unilaterally. I think our sheriffs are fantastic. I want every criminal in this town or around us to go to jail for as long as possible, probably longer than the judges. I think sometimes that just gets conflated with, oh, you don't want this. No, I want them to go to jail and I want them to suffer and I want them to pay for the crimes they committed. This is not the way to do it at the cost we pay to do it. I'm not going to go through all, I've been here so many times. I strongly recommend you read David Middleman's letter. I just read through the whole thing. It covers almost everything I'm aware of about Flock and all of their terrible ways. The one that really got me was when, I think it was in Virginia, a town much like ours, maybe bigger, was debating the same thing. And the CEO of Flock wrote a mean, scary letter to the police chief accusing his residents of being anti-police agitators and some other nonsense. And the police chief very eloquently wrote back, actually, sir, this is democracy in action and we respect our residents. It is the dirtiness of this company that is just galling. But you know what? The guy's a billionaire, so what can I say? I'm not. Something else that I think was not yet public or was not ruled on before your last meeting about this. And by the way, I know you're not voting on the contract now. I'm well aware. Do you guys know that? In Washington in November, a judge ruled that these photos are public records. That's obviously Washington, not California. But if that turns out to be true, that entire database that is supposed to only be accessible by our sheriffs, I could get all of your plates, go out, take them, and be like, hey, Mayor, you were here, everywhere for everybody in this town. We are creating that database. And what I've said before is we do not want to be generating this data. That is the fundamental problem. It's not the Fourth Amendment. It's not the camera. It's the generation and networking of the data that is the problem. I will leave this with this statement. 2 things can be true at the same time. It is a useful tool for the sheriffs to conduct law enforcement. No doubt. It can also be an awful invasion of our privacy and run by a terrible company. Sorry, ma'am, your company is awful. That we do not want to trust our stuff with. It's a company. I have a First Amendment right to berate a company. It is not a person. I have no problems with her.
I know, but
company
you've got to direct.
Sorry.
You got to direct.
Flock is an awful company. We should not pay them money.
Thank you for directing it to me.
If you guys decide to change it, all I will say to you is thank you, because there's no gloating anywhere. There's no anything. We should just do what's right based on the information we have. If you do decide to do it, I will come and thank you. And the last thing I'll leave is, I have an ALPR of my own at my house. I'd be happy to register it with the town and the sheriffs. And if the other residents did it, we could have our own internal network where if something did happen, they could ping the residents who were willing to share their data, and I'd gladly give it to them. So that's something we could do on our own. Doesn't involve Flock. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be back in the Zoom room with Sarah Matlin.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Matlin, and I live in nearby Redwood City. I'm a volunteer with the ACLU San Mateo County chapter, but I'm speaking today in my personal capacity. In my personal capacity, I often meet with friends and clients at the Village Hub, and I stop at the Village Bakery and the Bakery Cafe after hiking in Woodside. This annual review, yes, is to see if Woodside's ALPR system is in compliance with its policy. And the answer from Manager Ledbetter is, it's a matter of faith. That's not enough. Please pause Woodside's ALPR program. When the town of Woodside first installed its ALPR system, town leaders may not have fully known how ALPRs could put Woodside's community members at risk. But now we know that 71 police departments in California, unintentionally or intentionally, have violated the state law that prohibits them from sharing ALPR data with federal and out-of-state law enforcement agencies, including the federal agencies that are violently attacking communities across the country. Even if we can trust individual officers to do the right thing, we can't trust FLOC. FLOC previously instituted that side door Customs and Border Patrol pilot project that police departments did not know about. It's my understanding that this project is only paused right now. It's not been formally ended. And in addition, the Mountain View Police Chief explained very clearly that FLOC turned on the national lookup setting for approximately 3 months, from August 14th, 2024 until sometime in November of that year. He gave those specific dates. It doesn't matter that they weren't paying for the program. FLOC violated their free contract with Mountain View, and we can't trust ICE. As mentioned previously, when they hack the ALPR databases or when they do it through a daisy chain, they have been instructed to leave no trace. Your ALPR program risks the safety of any individuals traveling in Woodside, whether they're in Woodside residents just driving through, hiking through, eating their way through, or whether they are immigrants or people seeking reproductive care or people who are under attack in other communities. To protect everyone who lives and visits Woodside, the town council should pause its license plate cameras. With knowledge of these widespread violations of local policies and state laws, the town of Woodside now has a greater responsibility to make sure its ALPR system does not endanger community safety. You have the responsibility to protect the community from the high-risk consequences of ALPR abuse, and that's why you should pause Woodside's ALPR program. This evening, do not accept the audit, given the number of open questions that there was no clear answer to, other than it's a matter of faith. Please do not accept this report as sufficient in answering the open questions that have been posed this evening. And please pause your ALPR program. Please put this up for a vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the hall? Seeing none. Any comments from Zoom? Last call. Okay, we'll close public comment and open up deliberations. And I know we have some ground to cover, but if I could ask, at least as a starting point, as an addendum to your shared perspectives, to just also, if you could comment on how you would like to see the reporting relationship evolve or not with our sheriffs. And of course, if any member of the council wants to also add a motion in there that see if there could be majority behind that motion as well for future direction on anything, please mention that. And then, again, try to build. We'll try to build with whatever we hear from everybody as we go up and down the line. I think you earned the right to go first, Councilmember Wall.
All right. So fellow council members and members of the public and our Woodside residents that are here tonight, I'd like to begin by thanking the town manager and the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office for the quarterly and annual reports provided this evening. We all share a fundamental commitment to the safety of Woodside residents. The recovery of stolen vehicles and the apprehension of suspects, such as the March 2025 arrest following a hit near Sand Hill Road, demonstrate that ALPR technology can be a functional tool for local law enforcement. However, our duty as a council is not only to provide tools to the sheriff's office, but to ensure these tools are used in a manner that is legal, fiscally responsible, and respectful of the community we represent. Public safety is built on a foundation of public trust. When a vendor fails to meet its contractual obligations or undermines our local policies, that trust is compromised. As we reviewed the data tonight, we must look beyond the compliant labels in our internal audits and address the significant negative press coverage surrounding FLOC safety. We are seeing a documented pattern of behavior from this vendor that suggests they are no longer a reliable partner for our town. And I have several concerns that I believe we must address before moving forward with any further expansion or renewal of this contract. Our town policy was carefully drafted to ensure that Woodside's data remains on a short leash. We explicitly authorized only 3 specific agencies: the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, the San Mateo PD, and the Redwood City PD to access our system. Yet the recent reporting from our neighbors in Mountain View, Menlo Park, and other peer communities should really give us all pause. In Mountain View, an internal audit revealed that a nationwide lookup setting was enabled without the city's permission. For months, federal agencies from as far away as Kentucky and Virginia were searching Mountain View's license plate data. Perhaps even worse, a statewide lookup tool was active for 17 months, allowing more than 250 unauthorized agencies to conduct over 600,000 searches of their data. We have heard from Flock that sharing settings are always under the control of the agency, but the evidence from Mountain View contradicts that claim. Their chief of police stated bluntly that he no longer has confidence in this particular vendor after discovering these circumventions of local policies. In Menlo Park, tens of thousands of searches were conducted by departments in Texas and Illinois, despite state laws and local policies that strictly forbid sharing data with out-of-state agencies. If these nearby municipalities, which have rigorous oversight, could not prevent their data from being accessed by hundreds of unauthorized outside entities, we must ask ourselves, how can we be certain that Woodside's 3.1 million annual plate reads are not being harvested by the same agencies? My second concern is the practical risk this technology poses to the privacy of our residents. We are currently seeing ALPR data being leveraged for purposes that far exceed the bona fide law enforcement investigations that we authorized. A disturbing case in Johnson County, Texas, serves as a warning. A deputy there used a nationwide Flock search to track a woman for quote-unquote self-administered abortion. For months, Flock and the local sheriff characterized this as a missing person welfare check. It was only after public records were released that the truth came out. It was in fact a criminal investigation into reproductive health care. While this specific search may have originated in Texas, it queried over 83,000 cameras across the country. This is not just a social issue, it's a governance issue. When we contract with a vendor whose system architecture allows a single officer in another state to search our residents' movements for investigations that would be illegal under California law, we are exposing our town to significant liability and violating California's SHIELD laws that our state legislature has passed to prevent this exact scenario. Furthermore, investigations by the EFF have shown that the reason fields for searches are often filled with vague terms like test, investigation. They've even seen slurs. In some instances, the technology has even been used for personal vendettas, such as a Kansas police chief who tracked his girlfriend's vehicle 228 times. Our own audit tonight reviewed only 40 random searches out of nearly 118,000 queries. This is an audit of less than 0.04% of activity. This is not an adequate safeguard for a system of this scale. We also must consider the technical and professional stability of the vendor itself. In November 2025, security researchers published findings showing that Flock cameras are running on outdated Android 8 software that has not received security updates since 2021. These cameras are physically and digitally vulnerable, with unencrypted data storage that has been found to retain images far longer than the advertised period. As a council, we are responsible for the security of the infrastructure we approve. The trust center Flock provides is not a substitute for a secure technical architecture. When we see reports of hard-coded Wi-Fi network names that allow hackers to gain complete control of a camera, we are looking at a technical house of cards. The response from Flock's leadership to these legitimate concerns has been equally troubling. In December 2025, CEO Garrett Langley sent an email to law enforcement clients attacking the very concept of public oversight, characterizing critics of surveillance as nihilists who want to normalize lawlessness. This is not the language of a professional services provider. It is the language of a company that views democratic accountability as a coordinated attack. As we deliberate tonight, we must ask each of ourselves, what is the risk of doing nothing? What is the risk of simply accepting this report and moving on without demanding a more robust audit? Well, from a legal standpoint, the town of Woodside faces significant exposure. California's SB 34 and SB 107, our state's reproductive health care shield laws, are not mere suggestions, they are mandates. If it is discovered that Woodside's data was shared with out-of-state agencies for abortion-related or immigration investigations because we as a council failed to exercise due diligence, the town could face costly litigation and civil penalties. We have already seen the California Attorney General sue the city of El Cajon for these exact types of data sharing violations. As council members, we have a fiduciary duty to mitigate these risks. Ignoring documented evidence of vendor noncompliance is not playing it safe. It's inviting a lawsuit. Furthermore, there is profound reputational risk to this body and to us individually as elected officials. And I believe we're at a turning point. Our neighbors in Mountain View, Menlo Park, Santa Clara County, and several others have already faced the fallout of these unauthorized data leaks. If Woodside becomes the next headline because we chose to ignore the red flags raised by investigative journalists and neighboring police chiefs, we will have failed in our role as stewards of the public trust. Residents will rightly ask why we continue to trust a system that was demonstrably compromised elsewhere. Inaction today will be seen as an endorsement of the vendor's practices tomorrow. And Woodside is not alone in these concerns. In the past year, nearly 30 jurisdictions, including our neighbors in Los Altos Hills and Santa Cruz, have canceled or declined to renew their Flock contracts. Santa Clara County has delayed its renewal pending a full investigation into unauthorized data sharing and with federal authorities. I believe in providing our sheriff deputies with the resources they need to keep Woodside safe. However, safety also requires that we protect our residents from the overreaching surveillance and insecure technology. We cannot simply infer or trust or review and accept this report when the vendor providing the data is facing a nationwide crisis of trust. So I'm respectfully asking my colleagues to consider the following. We should pause the program and the installation of any additional cameras, including the one requested for Runnymede, until we have a full explanation from Flock regarding the unauthorized lookup settings found in other cities. We absolutely need a more robust audit process. Checking 40 searches out of 118,000 is insufficient to ensure that our policy is being followed. And most importantly, we must direct our town manager to explore alternative vendors. We need a partner that respects local control, prioritizes cybersecurity, and understands that in a democracy, transparency is not an attack, it's an obligation. To fulfill our responsibility to this community, we must move beyond the current reporting structure. The quarterly and annual reports we receive are currently prepared by the town manager's office, staffed by dedicated municipal employees. but individuals who are not experts in data privacy, cybersecurity, or digital forensic auditing. Expecting a town manager to verify the architectural integrity of a nationwide surveillance database and program is neither fair to staff nor effective for our oversight duties. Therefore, my final recommendation is that the town of Woodside immediately transition to a third-party audit model. We should hire an independent firm with specific technical expertise in privacy and security to conduct our ALPR reviews. This external auditor would be tasked with verifying that our data is not being accessed by unauthorized federal or out-of-state agencies, and that the vendor is meeting the highest standards of encryption and security. Replacing our internal reports with a professional, independent audit is a common sense measure. It provides the council with the expert analysis we need to make informed decisions, and it provides the public with the assurance that their privacy is being protected by more than just a vendor's promise. If we are to maintain the trust of this community, we must show that we are willing to hold our vendors accountable when they fail to meet our standards. Safety and privacy are not mutually exclusive. They both require a vendor we can trust and oversight we can verify. Based on the evidence we have seen tonight and over the last few months, I do not believe Flock Safety is a vendor, nor do I is that vendor, nor do I believe our current oversight model is sufficient to protect the people of Woodside. Thank you.
And where are you on sheriff reporting relationship?
So yeah, it's like if I'm interpreting your suggestion, so this is actually a nuance that I hadn't appreciated. So you're saying that currently the sheriff, rather than say we're having a reporting relationship to the town manager, reports to a committee?
I'm saying that currently the sheriff's department goes to the circulation committee. Circulation committee are volunteers. I feel shielded a little bit by not, I don't feel like we have great governance. I don't feel like I know what's happening the way I should. And I think that it would be helpful if the sheriff's department, as our #1 line item, and with all these safety issues and with the cameras and everything else that's going on, that we would adopt a reporting relationship that would be a direct reporting relationship, which I think would be appropriate and good municipal governance.
Well, first I'll say I'm very curious for my fellow council members to weigh in on the proposals that I just made, but
got them all
happy
listed.
to address your suggestion. So, you know, I was a member of the circulation committee for a year or so, and I never saw the sheriff's presence at the circulation committee as creating a reporting relationship in a governance sense, right? There was no yeah, that in my mind, that's not what I observed or I experienced. I think the sheriff showed up and offered really valuable information about the number of traffic stops in the community and other factual details to help inform the circulation committee's agenda, deliberations, et cetera. So I would want to see that continue. That being said, I'm 100% in support of establishing a more robust governance relationship between the town of Woodside and the sheriff's office. I think, like you said, it's one of our, it's either the #1 or one of the top, costs to the town of Woodside. And so I think we absolutely need to manage that relationship closely. And so yeah, I think that's a long-winded way of saying I would very much support a more robust governance relationship between the town manager and the sheriff's office.
So that's slightly different than what my ask was. So you are not supportive of moving the sheriff directly reporting to council. You want to keep the sheriff continuing to present at circulation.
I don't think that's exactly what I'm saying. I think I don't view the sheriff's reporting to circulation as creating a governance or a reporting relationship in the governance sense. I mean, they certainly are reporting information. So I don't think that we need to change anything about how the sheriff shows up at circulation committee, but I think we should establish a governance relationship between the town manager and the sheriff.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. So I don't know if anybody would like to go next on any perspectives, and then I'll just ask these 5 items that have been put forth from this as well.
I'll jump in.
Okay.
And first, I'd like to point out that Woodside has a long history with the Sheriff's Department, and we've always found to be very, very trustful, very high level of integrity, and very honest with us. There's no evidence of violations in the way they've been handling Flock with us. There's no hard evidence that says how many crimes have been prevented because of Flock, but I can tell you my own personal experiences the other day. Walked out the door, I live on Northgate, one of the streets that has the Flock camera. And there were 2 unoccupied vehicles parked next door. Unoccupied, nobody's around. My first instinct is, we better call the sheriff and say, what are we gonna do? Then I realized, I look up, there's a Flock sign. I wouldn't be crazy enough to try to break into a house right underneath the Flock sign. And that tells me that there is a strong evidence that it's going to be a reduction of our crime and continue to reduce crime in Woodside. So I'm very much in favor of what they have been doing. Can we improve it? I don't know. I'm not sure the evidence is any problems in Woodside. Nobody tonight has said that there were any issues that's come up with Flock and the way it's been managed in Woodside. And in terms of privacy issues, which were brought up when it first came into Flock, as well as every quarter it seems to come up, I want to point out to everybody, and then you know this, is your credit information, because you didn't know it, is on the dark web, which everybody's private information is available on the dark web. I know that because I've been talking to credit fraud companies about, personal protection. And they told me about all of your evidence of all of your finances all over the dark web. So that is not a privacy if you think that's a protection. I'd also point out that Google sells your information, for heaven's sakes. You go into Safeway, you go down the aisle, they're picking up information about what you buy and when you're buying it. And so I don't know where I would go further in terms of changing what we're doing with the Sheriff Department and Flock at this point. I understand what you said, Jen. I commend you the amount of work you put into this. I'm just not sure I'm ready to say do a whole scale change, stop, because there's a few instances around the country, and I'm keep in mind how many transactions occur throughout the law enforcement world annually, daily, and we're talking about a relatively small number of instances where information has been improperly disclosed. Having one officer in one community using it to go after his wife or spouse or girlfriend, that's on television, for heaven's sakes. I've seen plenty of programs about that. And it's an individual instance. I don't think it has anything to do with Flock as being, it's just one more tool they might use for that, but it's an individual problem. So as far as reporting to the council, yes, I'm all for that. I think I'd like to have more input. And I've seen the circulation committee and what the sheriff does with the circulation committee, because I'm the liaison on it. I think that information is very good for them, but the council should be seeing that information. And if there's any action to be taken, it should be taken by the council ultimately to act on it. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Let me just, for sake of clarity, go through the other 4 items. There was a motion to give direction to pause the program and installations. You are a yes or a no?
No.
There was a motion to for more robust audit searches.
No.
There was a motion for explore alternate vendors.
No.
There was a motion to transition to a third-party audit company.
No.
Okay. Who's next?
I can go.
Thank you, Councilmember Abarish.
This is a lot to think about.
Yeah.
I have to say I really appreciate Councilmember Wall, all the points you raised, and you also, Councilmember Brown. I do appreciate that there are major privacy risks. But when I take a step back, I care most about safety and of the community, of my kids selfishly, my family, everybody around me, my neighbors, my friends. And what I view as one of the biggest risks is criminals. I mean, I don't think that there's, like any significant chance that we're going to get, something's going to happen in Woodside. I think it's a pretty safe place, but I mean, I've known people that have died. I know one of my close high school friends got killed in a convenience store, and I never caught the person who did it. I've known somebody else who got lost their daughter because of a horrible accident where somebody was fleeing a crime scene, and I consider those the real risks in my life. The things that when I think about them, I don't want I want to do what I can to prevent them, and so for me, that is a tangible risk that the Flock system, with its flaws, it creates some protection, where we are going to have, if a criminal does something horrific or even, a relatively minor crime and starts fleeing through Woodside, I like to know that there is some safety net. There's some protection that somebody's going to catch them, that there is a system in place that's going to prevent it. They're not going to, come flying through and, look for a place to hide out and, hopefully run in, to me or my family. I'd like to know that doesn't exist. And, when I think about it, privacy, yes, I 100% agree. I worked in law school. I worked temporarily. I did an internship with the California Attorney General's office, and for the privacy sector, specifically going after companies that were violating privacy issues. And so I 100% value it. But I feel like relative to the other privacy risks that we're looking at right now, when you consider it in the scope of everything, I was just reading about Ring Central cameras can now identify a dog that's run away. If you lost your dog, you can somehow upload a picture of it into Ring Central, and it'll scan their whole system and help you find your dog. And I would be shocked if it didn't work with humans. I mean, or whatever. I mean, license plates. There's so much information now. And the same, I was just reading about it. Google, I believe it was Google, settled another lawsuit, for, hey Google, and then, or you don't say hey Google, you say something else, and it sounds like it, and suddenly it's recording. And the same with Siri. I remember lawsuits with that. And anytime you use a map application, I'm sure they have your data. I'm sure they're linked. They have they know who you are. They can track it. Your cell phone, social media. I mean, our data is everywhere. So this is one of the few instances where I feel like we have an application. Is it perfect? No. Are there risks? It sounds like there are, and they're being explored right now. Hopefully, this is a learning opportunity, and it sounds like already things are put in place to improve. But I think that this program specifically does provide an actual benefit. Does my, device at home, my, hey Google, my Siri stuff, does that give me any real protection? No. This seems to. And I feel like while there were a lot of voices that were, are speaking up against privacy, I think most of the people in Woodside that I know care most about safety. And so while they're not here today and not talking about it, I do think that that's a very high priority for people. And so I would want to, consider that. So going through the proposals, I
Would you
don't
like me to call them out or?
I think I
got them?
let me know if I miss any, but the proposal to pause, I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think I feel like the benefits outweigh the costs currently. The reporting structure, yes, absolutely open to that one. An external audit, I do like the idea. I don't know. I'd want to know the cost because it sounds quite expensive. And updating the reporting structure, or not. It's not the reporting structure, but the amount of information we receive and the is 40 random searches enough? I would like more, but at the same time, I also don't like the thought of our law enforcement spending hours and hours doing kind of this type of, just, spending so much time on this specific thing, and on a quarterly basis, it feels like a heavy lift when I would prefer resources directed elsewhere, and I don't know if there's a more efficient way to do this, if there's another, I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it is the outside auditor, might be more efficient, but, okay. Now
The last one was explore alternative vendors.
I'd be open to that because I don't know. I'm not sure. I didn't know that Flock had until today. I didn't know that there were alternative vendors, to be fully honest with you. So I'm not opposed to that one.
Okay. Thank you.
My turn.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem
It's
Gold.
been an interesting night.
Yeah. Been a good
Yeah, I mean, it has. I appreciate everybody's patience. I've got a whole bunch of stuff to say and I'll try to make it brief. I wanted to start with something and hopefully I'll end there because I tend to meander around here as I get lost in my thoughts. What's before us tonight is to review and accept the quarterly and annual reports from the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, not Flock, regarding the use of ALPRs. So that's what's before us. I find all of this really fascinating and interesting and meaningful and reasonable, and people make great points. That's just not before us tonight. What's before us tonight is, are we in compliance, actually the Sheriff's Office in compliance with the policy that we wrote? And it's okay if we want to change it, but that's not where we are tonight. And I actually don't mind changing it. In fact, if I remember correctly, unless I hallucinated this whole thing, which is entirely possible, I think about 6 months ago, I wrote an email to the town manager and town attorney about a new idea and it involved a lot of the things we're talking about tonight. A much deeper dive in a better sample size, maybe not necessarily so deep, but there were other things there. I don't know, maybe I'd have to search my email to see if I did write it. But the bottom line is I can get to the recommendation that the town is asking us, are we in compliance? And I think we are. I haven't seen any evidence that we're not yet. So I start there and I'm going to end there as well. There are very few people in this room who have been involved. I'm fascinated with the number of attorneys from Redwood City and nearby cities, and Hassan for sure. And I suspect anybody who's gone to law school has been involved in these sorts of issues. The civil liberties and the, personal privacy issue. I've been a member of the ACLU since 1969. Yeah, I'm that old. I joined when I was 18. I was in high school. And pretty proud of it. I've always been into that. And in fact, I'll tell you, the one episode that gave me pause was the Nazi March in Skokie, Illinois. And I was really, as a Jew, it really impacted me greatly. And I thought, this is why we're in it. This is exactly why I'm a member of the ACLU, was to defend essentially the rights of those protesters, and in this case, the rights of privacy. So it is a pretty big issue. I don't take a backseat to anybody on that, but it is a whole new world. And I flew to Mexico about a week or so ago. When I went to the airport, no passport, no nothing, facial recognition, step right on. I was pretty shocked, to be honest with you. I didn't have to show anything, and not your real ID, not your passport, nothing. And I flew to Mexico, and it was all facial recognition. Just go right on, wave me right in. By the way, same thing coming back into the country, which was pretty intriguing to me. I'm also fascinated by what something Asan has said. He and I have had this contest going on for a couple of years here. When we first discussed ALPRs, it was about 50-50, if I remember correctly. They were like half the people were, you know, crime. At the time, crime was a big deal. Residential burglaries, especially where I lived, it was a big deal. And people wanted something. And for whatever reason, they seem to have gone down. I don't attribute that solely to ALPRs. I think our sheriff's patrols have done a lot of good as well, and maybe just nationwide crime is down. But that shifted. And I think when we were here a couple of years ago, it was about 90-10. I mean, people were like asking for more cameras. Can we have more? We want more. This is like they're so good. And I sense that it's shifting back the other way. So it's making my friend Hassan, he's in more company now. And I see that. And I think that there have been abuses, and that's fine. But of all the things that I've heard here, I haven't heard a single abuse from the sheriff's office. And I'm more, you know, there's been a lot of talk about truthfulness, and your jobs are on the line if you lie. I know that. And so it's a big deal. But I also question the truthfulness of Mountain View. How do I know they're telling the truth? I mean, they've said something, and we've heard conflicting evidence tonight. They say that Flock changed it. Well, I don't know if they changed it or not. Why are we so willing to think that they're being truthful, but our sheriff's office, our deputies who we know, and we have a long-standing relationship with them, and there's not a single scintilla of evidence that they've done anything wrong or misled us, that suddenly their word is in doubt. I don't view it that way. I know our deputies and the folks at the sheriff's department, and at least we have no evidence that they are doing anything to mislead us. The last thing I do want to say is right now there's a major tragedy going on in Tucson, Arizona with Savannah Guthrie's mother. And we're all sort of glued to the TV. Well, maybe not everybody, but I've been glued to the TV watching this. It's a pretty tragic case, of course, for the family and for this 84-year-old mom, I think. And, I just can't even imagine what that family's going through and finding blood and those things. But the first thing they did was ALPR cameras in the area. And you could tell that the suspect that they saw went after the Ring cameras. You're on camera, wherever you go. And he did things to disguise it and erase cameras, but they managed to salvage them. Cell phone towers. As the suspect was moving through, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. There's not a whole lot of activity on cell phone towers. And did they find anything? We're being tracked 24/7 on this phone. I can tell you, Apple and Google and anybody else who's out there, Verizon knows where I am at all times. And they let me know that in no uncertain terms when they're suggesting me that I buy certain things when I get near a Target. But anyway, this is anything but business as usual. We take this seriously. I think that the comments I congratulate Councilmember Wall. It was a really thorough exercise of the seriousness that we take this. And I think everybody is taking it seriously. And I can obviously get there with that we're in compliance, but I do think, consistent with that email that I sent 6 months or so ago, we need to revisit this and we need to take a look at it again. And I would, I think all the issues that Councilmember Wall had discussed should be on the table. I think before we suggest 1%, we should do a statistical power. That's a real thing. I mean, you don't just say, I want to do 1%. There's a way to power your surveys to make sure they're right. We don't sample 1% of the United States population to do a presidential poll, and they're accurate within, plus or minus 3%. Now, I know that that's an accuracy thing, not necessarily an audit, but no matter if you change vendors, you're still going to be dependent on the truthfulness of those two guys in those black uniforms back there. Always, no matter what. Audits are always going to be dependent on the data that you go through there and whether people are misrepresenting, and you can actually misrepresent an audit. But anyway, the biggest question is, can I see my way clear on the audit? I can. I think that we have successfully checked those boxes. There's not any evidence to counter that. And I think that with regard to all of the points that were made before, I think we should put it on the agenda and we should have a thorough discussion about a new policy, if that's what we do, and which would involve all the things that I think Councilmember Abarish has went through in his list there. I would go along with almost everything that he said. in the way he said it.
So you literally want to say yes to everything?
No, I agreed with,
Take this one by one with you.
take it one by one if you want, but I think I'm reflect,
Sheriff's reporting directly to the council,
yes,
pausing the program,
no,
more robust audit services.
not an outside vendor, but changing the audit, I think.
I'm going to say that's a yes.
Yeah, okay.
Exploring alternative vendors.
Should be on the table. What he said.
Transition to a third-party auditor.
Probably not, because I think that's going to be an issue for the sheriff's office, that is allowing a third-party vendor to come in and access the data. I find that somewhat dangerous,
Okay.
but it's on the table.
Okay. Okay. And may I just add a few things? Are you complete?
I'm done.
Thank you.
I have to be.
Yeah, so starting in regard to the contract and compliance with the contract, I didn't hear anything today that stops us from accepting the report. It meets all of our written requirements, and the answers that were given tonight were extraordinarily impressive. So I want to tip my hat. I really almost can't believe some of the answers that happened tonight. I will wholeheartedly admit there is a lot not to like right now. There is extreme reputational damage. The self-certification model, couldn't agree more. That's problematic. Software questions, balancing safety with privacy. It would be very easy to fold our hand right now. It's the easy thing to do, frankly. But I'm not there, and I'm also not there in terms of the integrity of our sheriffs and my belief in their procedures. When you think about all these events going on around us, I took a little time to just go back and ask myself, why did we originally vote 5-0 to do this? And why did we just vote 5-0 as a group just a few months ago to put another one in? The reason is it's a very, very effective law enforcement tool. And what we hear over and over again is it's essential to the work of our sheriffs. We have a wonderful quarterly audit process. It takes a long time to go through, but it is very robust. And we've had in writing directly on our questions, comments from, in writing from the sheriffs that they've done their audits. We've had public releases from the sheriff's department that our data is not being misused. I think some of these examples, like the Mountain View example, is a false equivalency, and I just can't get there. So I know one speaker had negative things to say about this old comment, but when it relates to the roads, the license plates, they're public domain, and we're using technology to capture them. And when you're on the road, you're in the public domain. So in regards to the reporting relationship with the sheriffs, I want to see that change, so I'm in that category. Do not want to see the pause. I do not want to see an alternate vendor. I think that's going to be problematic because I don't think it's going to be very effective, frankly. I think some of the value comes from the network, even though there's so much criticism about being networked. The one thing I really liked, though, was the idea of spending some time searching for just what is entailed in a third-party auditor. Jason, your answers were unbelievable. I've always been super impressed in the short time I've known you about how deep you can dive and have answers that I would have thought you were the expert in the entire field of license plate readers tonight. It was unbelievable. I don't know how you can possibly keep that up. And having deep expertise would be very helpful to you. I don't know what it's going to cost. And that person might come forward and then say, hey, based on what we know, yeah, we should have slightly more robust audit or a bigger sample size or whatever those things are. I don't even know if that person truly exists. Honestly, I haven't heard of that position before tonight, but maybe we could look, see if that position is around. So I am in that camp as a reasonable next step. And I'm frankly, it's despite all of this, a very, very short leash on this whole thing. It wouldn't take much more, frankly, to push me over. But at this point, I'm
holding ground. So I will say where we are and then ask for further deliberation, but where we are is we've got 4 votes for sheriffs directly reporting to council going forward, and we have 3 votes on finding a third-party auditor to searching and going through a process to see if that's viable or not. Every other proposal fails, but we are still open for deliberation. If there are any further thoughts or comments on any of it. Okay, seeing none, I think we need to call for a vote here because we have some future directions. So we'll call for a vote to accept the report with the direction to reinstate a direct reporting relationship to the sheriffs and, yeah.
Sorry, can you separate things? Because I would like to go
Okay.
different ways on different aspects of that. Maybe vote on accepting the report and then.
Each of the future
Yeah.
directions?
Yeah.
Understood. Excellent suggestion. Thank you. Okay, we need a motion to accept the report.
I'll move to accept a resolution of the town council of the town of Woodside requesting the California Department of Transportation. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong.
Old business there.
Apologies.
Just quarterly and.
Sorry, I move to accept the quarterly and annual report on automated license plate readers, ALRPs.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. In terms of future direction to reinstate a direct reporting relationship with the sheriffs to the council. We have a motion on that? Yeah, we need to get, yes, I did. Okay.
Second.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. And in the hunt to give guidance to staff to start a search for a third-party audit capability to be brought into this to help us continue to have good governance and oversight and supervision. I don't know if I botched that or not. Is that close enough? Okay. Need a motion on that. Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
No.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Yes. Okay. That concludes the topic A, if you can believe it. I want to just thank our sheriffs for being here and obviously the representative from Flock Safety and of course all of the comments from the public in terms of input this evening. Thank you. And we're going to take a 3-minute break. Thank you. Bring our council members back to the dais. Okay, moving on to new business. Item B, a resolution on up at Four Corners on speed limits. So I'll hand it off to you, Jason, to introduce the topic.
Yeah, I'll introduce it and then I'll kick it over to the town engineer. Ultimately, this is one that I got involved in before the town engineer was on staff. And so I was contacted by the ownership group of Alice's and some engaged members of the public that frequent Alice's and live in the surrounding area. And based off of the bicycle accident, the death that transpired there over the summertime, we instigated a meeting with Caltrans, and Caltrans has come forward with a proposed project that would put 2 stop signs at that intersection, making it a 4-way stop sign. And there's concern from the public currently that it's 40 miles per hour coming into that intersection, and that they want to be very clear to Caltrans that they want to drop that speed because they are fearful of the safety of people approaching a 4-way stop being unaware of it. And so we should have Andy, I believe, online this evening. Is he available online? And then, Louis, do you have anything to add on this particular one?
Just a little bit. Thank you, town manager. So the town also received a petition signed by 543 people asking the town council to adopt a resolution requesting Caltrans for this speed zone reduction. And it is also, establishment of this 25 miles per hour speed limit on this section of the state highway. And it would definitely help improve safety for motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, any comments from public? David?
David Middleman. I live about a mile away from Alice's or less. Can't remember. I remember when this incident happened. I remember coming in angry about it and talking to you guys about it. The speed limit is request. I feel like I could speak for the community is kind of the minimum we feel that we can get out of this. The stop signs are ignored when people are racing on 35. Speed limits are a suggestion on 35. And what really needs to be done is a traffic study and a redesign of that area, which Caltrans said they were going to do, but not in a way that was amicable to anybody listening. It involved getting rid of the island that's currently there, cutting down 25 mature redwood trees, changing the entire character of that area of town. The solution that was self-generated by the community but ignored, that I believe Steve Lubin also studied, was the idea of a roundabout. And so I respectfully ask that as part of this resolution, you also ask Caltrans to investigate a roundabout versus just stopping at a stop sign and lights. Thank you.
You. Any other public comments on new business item E? Seeing none in the room and none in the Zoom, we will close public comment. Any deliberations from council?
I think this makes all the sense in the world. I mean, that's a speedway up there. And we got to give the sheriff, everybody that tries to police up there, some tools that they can use to try to slow everybody down. It's going to save lives.
Yeah. Councilmember Abarish.
So I live about a half a mile from this intersection, and I would agree. I don't know a single person who would not be in favor of this. It's very dangerous anytime you have to cross over, especially where there's no stop signs in yet. I know they're coming, but I don't know when. But people will come flying down. When the speed limit's 35, they'll go 50. I don't know what they do, but and obviously it's dangerous. And I'm assuming there's not going to be any opposition to this, so I'll keep this short. But yeah, so I think I full-heartedly support this.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, I'll just add that we're in a position of advocacy here, and this is our way to do our part. And I think this speed limit reduction request makes a lot of sense. And that's all I have to say. So do we have a motion? Would you like to make a motion? It's your district, of course.
Thank you.
Yes.
This time in order. I'd like to make a motion to pass a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Woodside requesting the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans, to establish a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit, 500 yards from the intersection of State Highway 84 and State Highway 35.
Councilmember Alberish?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Gold?
Yes.
Councilmember Wall? Mayor Domkowski?
Yes. Thank you. We'll close item B and move on to C, a request to establish a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit within 500 feet of Woodside Elm.
Yeah, this is the town manager, and just to state that I normally won't steal the thunder of the town engineer on these items moving forward, but I'm just connected to them because they transcend his start date with us. And so before I started, the circulation committee had voted on this request and had talked about it after I began, and ultimately a request came in from the chair, who is here today to speak about this item. The request has been made to drop the speed limit from its current 25 during school hours to the flashing 15-mile-per-hour speed zone. This is something that is happening in the state of California, specifically in San Mateo and on the peninsula all around us. This is a normal action that is currently being taken. And then ultimately, we've had interest from the school to see an action like this as well. And so without further ado, I think if the chair from the Circulation Committee had any more comment on this item.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Yeah, so we look at speed trailer data, and we've had trailers out there for a couple different times. And I think the thing we've noticed is there's a lot of cars going above 25, like a decent amount, right? Not all of them, but a decent amount go above 25, even during the window of, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 2, 3, 4 p.m. And the other thing we've observed is, coming from this direction to the school, there's the town center, there's Bucks, there's enough kind of visual noise, but coming the other way from the, mountainside, you don't actually know there's a school there unless you live here and you're aware of the location. And so it's an awareness thing too. You see, there's homes, there's the tennis court wall, and all of a sudden you're on the school. So it's hard for people to be aware that, hey, there's something coming. I've stood out there at various times with other parents and folks, and some people speed there pretty quickly, and it's just like, this is a narrow area. Why are you doing this? But really what it came down to was the speed trailer data was just excessive for in-school zones. It's a small area. I think the whole thing is 700 or 800 feet long. I think the key distinction is it's during school hours or whatever, the statutory language based on the California law for when it applies. So it's not all the time. It's, when kids are at school, basically. And I think really the goal isn't to make everyone go 15 or 14 miles an hour. It's to maybe get them down to 25 from the 35, 40 that they're doing, when they really shouldn't be in that area. So I think that was the motivation for us. I also personally don't think it needs to be 500 feet in each direction. I think maybe library to tennis court would be a reasonable area. Because again, it's not a, it's not a dragnet that's going to slow somebody down. It's a speed limit. And it also gives the sheriff's tools to, enforce it, because I think generally from what they've told us in the past, unless someone's 10 or 15 over, they don't write citations, which is understandable. So here, somebody doing 30 is 15 over, and they definitely deserve a citation, again, during school hours. So the last thing I'll add, and I think, Jason, you had this in your email, for some reason in the past few weeks, there's been a number of near misses right in front of the school. I've seen video. In fact, I saw one happen in front of me 2 days ago on Monday morning, where somebody swerved into the church parking lot and almost took out 2 girls on bicycles that I see riding to school every single day, and they had to swerve to a stop. So I think that whole area the sheriffs have been there. I think Circulation is going to look at it from what other things we can do for that area. Obviously, it's Caltrans, so it's going to be suggestions. But I think this is a nice first step. The lights, the speed limit reduction, just again, you're in a school zone, slow down. Yeah, I guess that's my thing. Any questions on maybe what we've deliberated or anything like that? Okay.
Were there, I guess my question is, sometimes when there's a behavioral issue, it's really can be handled by enforcement. I don't know if that was talked about or if it just was straight to cut the limit.
Yeah, we've talked about it. I think the challenge lies in, and you know this all too well, we talked about it extensively tonight. There's 2 sheriffs usually on 2 deputies in town at any given time. They've been at the school, both of them recently, which we appreciate. I think it's just, if they're not there, it's not going to happen. The other statistic that I will share is one statistic we've asked, I know Councilmember Brown knows this, when we get our reports from the sheriffs on their citations each month, what percentage are addresses outside of Woodside? And it is almost exactly 75% every month. So that means 75% are outside Woodside. So they're not Woodside residents, which means they're not part of our community maybe, they don't know the area, they don't care, whatever it is. It's, people who probably care less than everyone in this room and the people who live here. Shame on the 25% to get them here, but that's a different discussion. And so I think that tells me that it's an awareness thing. If that number was coming down over time or was changing, the number of citations stays sort of constant, that percentage stays constant. So we just need awareness, we need enforcement, but I think you need all of them. And I think, I know there's concerns about, the speed going through there, how much it might slow things down. I think the traffic really is just some people pulling in and out of the school, which sometimes there's some silly things that happen to literally gridlock the whole thing. But I don't think slowing down that little section, if you did the whole 500 feet, it might be a little bit too much, but that little section in front of the school, dropping it again, if you're doing 20, the sheriff's not going to give you a citation. I can just tell you that right now. If you're doing 30, then you probably will get one. So I don't think it'll cause traffic. Obviously, I assume Caltrans will do a traffic study before they implement anything, but We've looked at the options and the sheriffs they haven't said, oh yeah, we'll just ticket everyone who goes 26. Like that's not something they can commit to. And we know realistically that's not possible. So,
Your last comment, interesting too. Because one of the things I was a little bit concerned about is traffic backup and maybe some unintended consequences at Kenyatta or all the way up to Pioneer. It's already, as we know in the mornings, the speed limit's already like 5 miles an hour in the morning. The idea of any sort of doing like a trial period or where we can do an observable, what actually happens? Do people start sneaking around on Manuela and Olive Hill to start to get around it? Or, I mean, I'm not sure what we don't know, I guess, when you do something.
You mean if there's backups?
Yeah, backups and traffic patterns. And it's the idea of a traffic study, but an observable traffic study that we would actually be able to witness and understand that, make sure we're not solving a problem in one place and creating it in another. Is that something that you think is viable, or you want us to just proceed full on resolution to?
I mean, I'd ask the town engineer, like, can you temporarily change a speed limit
Can we
somewhere?
do a trial speed limit or no?
Is that even possible?
I don't even know. On a state highway?
We would definitely need Caltrans to weigh in on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, well, there was one example. So I think was it 2 years ago when they were doing the storm drain next to Bucks, where they started, like literally they would start at like 8 a.m. I don't think some of you weren't here for that, but they started at 8 a.m. They started like the week school started, and they would close a lane. If you wanted to see a disaster, I actually fell in behind you the other day, Mayor, on the way. I was leaving the school. I was like, oh,
I was driving all right. Was that
you were
all right?
fine. You were
okay.
good.
Okay.
No problems.
Oh, thank you.
There's too much traffic to do.
Thanks for adding that to the public comment.
You were wonderful. But that was a disaster because it was literally blocking a lane right during drop off, and Caltrans refused to do it any other time. Then people were using Manuela, albeit the back roads. But I think I used it as well because I live near there, and I would drive the speed limit. I wouldn't speed, but unless the thing was completely stopped, that route is not faster. So I think it's only if you are literally like staring at a excavator getting unloaded in front of you for the next 10 minutes that would make sense to go around. Otherwise, kind of the stop sign traffic, at least in my personal opinion, driving through there every single morning, like you said, the school traffic, the pulling in and out is a problem. Not if it's 9:30 a.m. and you're just going through there 10 miles an hour slower, I don't think it'll be, a massive thing. And then weekends, right? Weekends, we see tourist traffic. It won't apply weekends because kids aren't at school.
Yeah. I tried to drive 15 miles an hour, 500 feet on either side. It is painful. That is a painfully slow drive. Your idea of library to tennis court, literally property line to property line for the school, is that viable? Or does it have to be by state law, 500 feet off each side or something?
I thought it was within.
I don't even know. I mean, it's a very long arc to go 15 miles an hour. And for anybody that's living out west of that area, that is, and it's a main artery. A lot of constituents use it for other reasons than school drop off.
I think the school itself, when I roughly measured it, was like 700 or 800 feet.
Yeah.
So 500 each side would be a huge percentage increase.
Yeah.
Which is why, like I said, I thought the rule was to within 500 feet. I don't think it's absolutely 500 feet. So I suspect we can advocate for what we think is appropriate for that area. I think, but I'm neither a lawyer nor a, licensed engineer.
Yeah, town engineer, is that your understanding as well? Is that we ultimately can make that request and then we can find out from Caltrans, or do you happen to know the answer to this question as far as the 500 feet?
I know ultimately we can consult with Caltrans, but I think it's within the local district's authority. So we will check with Caltrans on that.
Okay. And one last one. I didn't mean to dominate, but I don't know if that's possible tonight. I mean, I think TCAP, there's sort of a global approach that's happening here with circulation and traffic calming and all sorts of things. This is, I'm assuming, part of the jurisdiction of what TCAP is considering, and with some global master plan, I'm assuming it's coming at some point, or out of TCAP that would include this area. In terms of, I'm just thinking about dealing with something one-off versus dealing with something sort of globally.
Yeah, that is the hope. I think from some video footage that we both, I think, have seen, there's an issue. And actually, I ran into Christina, who's also on circulation today. And she was stating that she really felt like that bike lane was allowing the cars a location to drive into. And so there was video that I saw recently of children crossing at the crosswalk. So naturally, cars are stopped. And some car took it upon themselves to cut around all of them and try to gun past everybody, almost hitting the children that were crossing the crosswalk. And so traffic calming measures that maybe stick a median, or there's a path that's matching the other side of the road, would ultimately make it that impossible, whereas 15 miles per hour will not have any effect on that level of concern that we currently have. So yes, I think that that is our expectation, is through the TCAP, we're going to see all kinds of traffic calming measures that would also lead to better mobility for the pedestrians and the community.
Any other questions? I mean,
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I'd like to, before we jump into something like this, I'd like to think that we've done a thorough study of, I mean, you've talked about some other examples, but I'd like to see it perhaps in writing presented to the council as here's what we've looked at to slow traffic and create a safer environment in front of the school. And here's what's going on in other communities. Here's what the technology says you can and can't do. And here's why we recommend this specific action. Instead of something, bang, we're gonna go 15 miles an hour. I don't know if it's gonna fly. If it works, great, but let's find out where it's working and why it's working. What are they doing that maybe we can adopt ourselves? But that's a big leap for me to go this drastic on a state highway that is used by 75% of the people from out of town.
so your question is, could there be further work done basically on this, do you think, basically?
On this idea?
Yeah.
I like the idea, but I don't know if it's
Want to make sure.
feasible to really do until that's why I'd like to see some kind of study by the circulation committee, maybe along the lines of what was done on the work that was done east of 280.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to make sure we don't deliberate quite yet.
You can cut me off, okay?
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off. You know that. Any other questions before we go to public comment? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Public comment. David, we got one in the room. Okay, and then we'll go to the Zoom.
You posed a question. I wanted to offer some anecdotal evidence about how this would affect people that live west of town. One of the things I noticed when I moved to the mountain 9 years ago was that when I was coming, when I'm going north on 280 to the city or coming back, that it's equal time to get off at Woodside Road or Sandhill Road in terms of going home. And that's probably because of the speed limits and what I can currently do. And so in terms of how it would change traffic patterns, at least anecdotally, if you were to drop it down at the school for unknown how far, right? To make that longer, you might shift that traffic to Sandhill. So that's all I wanted to offer anecdotally.
Thank you. We'll go to the Zoom room. Christina Warren.
Hello.
Christina. Yes, hi.
Okay, just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Hi, I'm Christina Warren. I am on the circulation committee. I also live west of the elementary school, and I also have 3 children at the elementary school. Two things I wanted to point out. One, in terms of how effective is this? The reason that this measure was brought into California law and passed is because of the survival rate of children at 15 miles per hour versus 25 miles per hour. So there are lots of studies and lots of data as to why so many towns across California have implemented this law. You can see it in Menlo Park, Atherton, San Mateo, Redwood City, San Carlos, all up and down the peninsula. And I think another thing that's really important to note is that our elementary school is positioned in one of our busiest cut-through streets in our entire town. And we have people from all different communities cutting through the town who are unaware of the fact that there is a school approaching when they're driving through our town. Living west of the school, I'm like right across from Fox Hollow. So I'm halfway between the school and the little store. And there has been nothing done to address safe routes to school for children that live west of the elementary school. So in my mind, the absolute least and cost-effective thing we can do is to reduce the speed limit for kids walking to school so that they can safely get to school, because people are flying down the hill at 40 miles per hour. Kids can't, there's no crosswalk for kids to safely walk the streets. There's no safe sidewalk for kids to get to school. Everything's been addressed for kids east of the school from the Glens to get to school, but we have tons of kids west of the school that are having to deal with high-speed cars passing them while they're trying to get to school that live less than 500 yards from the school. So to me, this is a no-brainer, and I would hope that the committee would put the safety of children first. Part of the reason that it's been brought to light is because so many parents are now realizing that there's an outlet to voice all of the near accidents that occur every single day in front of our school. I think I've been encouraging people to start sending in the videos and writing in to town council and things like that. But this isn't a new problem. We see these near misses every single day. And I just would like the council to think about this as a preventative measure instead of waiting for a child to be killed to do something about the safety in front of the school, because it is a daily problem. And I think there are lots of parents that can vouch for how problematic it is in front of our school.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Moving on to Kim Hansen.
Hi, thank you. So I'm also on the circulation committee, so I don't know if I'm speaking as a member of that committee or just as a citizen. I would like to say that I am in favor of the 15-mile speed limit reduction. I think that if we use Los Altos schools as a model, that 15-mile-per-hour speed reduction is just by the school boundary. And it's a small area, but for me as a driver, it's been effective, so I would recommend that. I've really been impressed by the advocacy of parents and members of the community, but I feel like the school, Woodside Elementary School, has been really non-participant in this. And I would like I'm just kind of surprised. We really haven't heard from school board members or from the administration, and I feel like they need to be part of this, that they have to want it as badly as us. So that's my personal opinion. The other couple comments are unrelated, is that this agenda has really been amazing, but too packed for this town council meeting. I think everybody's really tired, and I think that y'all have had too many really important topics on one night's agenda. And the other item is that I cannot hear everyone's microphone during the voting part of after your deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, and thanks for the reminder to keep that microphone close. Any comments from the hall before we take what looks like the last call here in Zoom? Seeing none, Stacia Carr.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to voice my support for lowering the speed limit as another parent in the school. I've also witnessed many near misses, both seeing cars go around on the bike lane side and then actually also cars coming in and passing on the left, coming into where the first crosswalk is if you're coming from Kenyatta Corners. Honestly, I don't know why, but recently it just has seemed to be a particularly significant problem, and I would like us to do something like Christina said before somebody gets killed. One thing I wanted to just mention is I agree with the point that particularly coming from the west into town, by the tennis courts, it can be hard to see that there is a school there. So we don't, as I understand it, we don't have to actually extend the length equidistant. So like, for instance, the amount of the 15 mile per hour could be shorter on the Kenyatta Corners side than it is toward the mountain side, if we want to kind of give more warning on that side for people to slow down. I believe that that's one of the options. And then I think the other thing I just wanted to remind folks is that this is only during school hours. So when, we back up on the weekends and those other times, this won't be in effect. And so, I think that some of the traffic impact concerns may not be as relevant as we feel like they are, because, if we're not there during the school hours, you may not realize kind of the impact. So anyway, it's late and I'm not sure I'm making as much sense as I would have a couple hours ago, but thank you all for taking this. And I really, really would encourage you to look at lowering that speed limit, as if nothing else, to follow the pattern that we see in the rest of California, and also just to keep our kids safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Deliberation from council. Any thoughts from council?
Already heard mine.
Well, I can go. Or would you like to go? Yes.
I don't mind
That's
going.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, I still, as always, I think of safety as the number one issue. And especially when it comes to our most vulnerable community, which is little kids. And I've seen every single day when I drive down Woodside Road, I have at 25, it's not every single time, but most of the time there's somebody tailgating me because they want me to go faster, and they're making it as clear as they can by riding my bumper. And I don't keep going the same speed. So yeah, I think people drive too fast. I totally support it.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Wall, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I'm very supportive of this proposal. I think it's like many of the commentators, residents said, it's a child safety issue. I really appreciated Christina Warren's comment around that there's a lot of data showing that the survival rates of children, that, God forbid that an accident does happen, to have it be at 15 miles an hour versus, much faster speed, the outcomes are very different. And yeah, I mean, it's very convincing to me to take a preventative measure like this, rather than, we're hearing a lot of anecdotal evidence and stories, coming out that there's been a lot of near misses. So I think it's, important for us to take this preventative step. Generally, I'm very supportive of safe routes to school initiatives. And I think it was one of the people that commented made a really good point that really nothing has been done to address kids that live west of Woodside Elementary School. So I think this is a really important next step. And I think, we're seeing, other towns around us make similar changes to their speed limits near the school. So I don't know, I could keep going on repeating the good points, but the point is I'm very supportive of this.
Thank you. And Mayor Pro Tem Gold. Which is good. I drove around a little bit, area schools that are a mile or two away, and sort of surprised. In front of Los Lomitas, the speed limit is 25. On Alameda Stellas Pulgas. In front of Corte Madera, the speed limit is 25. This is just, I've been thinking, I mean, this affects a lot of constituencies is on my mind. It's a main artery. I don't disagree with the comments that have been made. I'm wondering, as a compromise, or what we heard tonight, there were two insights that grabbed me. One was that we might be able to just do this property line to property line. I would find that to be a far more reasonable compromise than what I think is in this document, which is 500 feet of either side. I think if you try to drive that, I think it's almost punitive beyond reason. The other thing I did love, and I just, hearing that today, the survival rate at 15 miles an hour versus 25 might be enough to, that's a really interesting stat that I hadn't thought about. So I guess what I would ask is, would we be open to just modifying the resolution to be property line to property line? I think we kind of heard that from the chair of the circulation committee. I think it's reasonable. And if you haven't tried to do what is being requested in this resolution, I would ask you to try to do it. It's, I get it. We all make sacrifices for the benefit of safety, and I understand that. But I guess I'm just wondering if there's a way to modify this into a reasonable space, one side or the other.
I like that proposal. I think one thing that we should talk about though is, had the speed limit been 15 within 500 feet of school, I presume there would be a sign up, right? Kind of announcing that speed limit. And one of the things we heard from one of the people in public comment was that oftentimes, especially for, well, very much especially for people that aren't familiar with Woodside's roads, that are from out of town, simply don't know that a school is coming. And so what I would like to prevent is somebody speeding. And I think we heard from Hassan, like, people aren't, just doing 25, they're doing 35, 45. So maybe in addition to your proposal, where the speed limit sign would have otherwise been put, maybe we can put a sign that indicates the school.
Yeah, school zone ahead or whatever. Yeah, okay. Thank you, and I would support that continued modification. And of course, the signs will say when children are present, obviously, in a big yellow thing over them, yeah. Okay, can we get that motion?
Sure. I would move to approve a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Woodside requesting the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans, to establish a 15-mile-per-hour speed zone within the property property line of Woodside Elementary on State Highway 84 Woodside Road, and work with Caltrans District 4 on its implementation. Additionally, we would direct the town of Woodside, town manager, or Department of Engineering, whoever needs to be directed, to put up a sign indicating that a school zone is approaching within 500 feet of the school, west of the school.
Second.
School, yeah.
Councilmember Alberish,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Gold, Councilmember Wall, Mayor Domkowski.
Reports, volunteer?
No report.
Thank you. Mayor and council communications?
March 21 on your calendar is the seniors memory workshop, and then followed by April 25 for the second stage of that.
What's the date again?
March 21 is the first one, and then another one in April 25.
Got him in. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, then I think we're going to close it at a 10:48, a late one.